Hey Adam, how you doing today, buddy? I'm just getting everything ready over here. Today, we're gonna be talking about whatever the fuck the woke right is. Been seeing this thing around for months now.
Adam, how you doing today, buddy?
Oh,
I'm just
why are we getting two of me? Okay, there we go. All right. I think you all got to hear two of me. Okay, but we're back to normal. Anyway, like I was saying, woke right. What the fuck is it? I keep seeing stuff about it. I don't know what the hell it's supposed to be, but we're going to find out. And we're going to see if there's any validity to this. We're going to watch a couple of debate segments about it. And yeah, that's what we're going to do today. Should be interesting. I was able to find a good little chunk of content. We'll get a few different random opinions. This isn't really going to be my wheelhouse. I'm not really a right-winger, but we're going to check it out anyway. We're going to get started at 7, so in about 4 minutes, depending on where you're at in the world. For me, 7 o'clock is in 4 minutes, so that's when we're going to get started. But yeah, apparently we can talk about it now. But apparently this guy... chat box is on the screen, but why isn't it black? It's supposed to be black. Where's the background? background color. There is a background color. What's the problem? What is the background color? Um, huh. Maybe I can make it a little bigger? There we go. We're going to do that for chat for this window. Okay. Just another couple of minutes and we will get into this. Just want to give everyone a chance to start to trickle in here. Make sure I got everything. Okay, we got live chat. We got live chat. We have the videos up and ready. Okay. Yeah, everything's ready to go. So I think we'll get started. Yeah, 6:59, close enough. We'll get started. Everyone will show up whenever they show up. I don't really do like a pre-watch thing, so my stream just kind of goes live. No one really knows when it's going to happen exactly, but here we are. So,
what does
this guy, I don't think it was him that coined it, but he's the one that's been using it a lot lately. This guy, James Lindsay, has been going all around the internet talking about the woke right. And I'm trying to figure out what this is. What does this mean? What is this? And so that's what we're going to do today. And I figured we'd start with him explaining why he uses it to Michael Malice. Because apparently this interview is kind of where this whole thing kind of took off. So without further ado, let's see what this is all about. And if it makes any sense to me or not. Because so far, not so much.
What does this term woke right mean to you? And can you break it down at how it's used?
Well, since you just invoked the magic word of spectrum, I also am a bit spectral, if we will spin a pun here. So I am a little bit on this spectrum. I'm a mathematician, right? And so a lot of people have asked me through the years, well, what in the world does math have to do with analyzing Marxism or political currents or world politics or whatever else? And the answer that I give, obviously analyzing and cutting through the BS of Marxist writing and Marxist thought, the answer that I give is that mathematicians are obsessed with definitions. We really are. Because if you get a definition, if you observe some mathematical phenomenon and you want that to be the subject of a paper, let's say, or whatever, and you define that term a little bit wrong, nothing works. Because with math, everything is like ice cold mechanical logic, right? Once you have the axioms, once you have the definitions, every logical consequence is already there. It already follows. You just have to figure out what they
I
are.
was an accounting major, and the point is, when you have your balance sheet, if it's a penny off, you can't just be like, it's just a penny. It's like, no. That
find the
it could be
penny.
$100 as well. It's some mistake I made somewhere, and that
That's
one
right.
penny could be $5,000 here and 4,999 on the other side. So
Yeah.
it's exactly like what you're saying.
Yeah. So we're really precise with definitions. So when
This guy talks like Jordan Peterson. Just answer the goddamn question, man.
I use a term like woke right, you can trust, and I'm not saying it like Trump, believe me. I've actually demonstrated this throughout my entire career. It's a repeated pattern for the pattern noticers out there. They can notice this pattern is that I have thought about how that term should be defined and how that definition creates implications
Okay.
before I start using a term. I do use a lot of stuff glibly, but some people can't tell the difference, but not everybody's, riding the full length school bus. That's okay. So woke means something very specific, and I've been beating this drum for years. So we got two terms, woke and right, in the phrase woke right. Somebody accused it of being an idiom. It's not an idiom. An idiom is a saying where you can't derive the meaning from the words. Like, don't put your cart before the horse. Yeah, raining cats and dogs. Like, you're looking around. My very literal daughter at one point was like, "Why are we talking about horses now?" When I said, "Don't put your cart before the horse."
Jay, I was in North Korea, and we went to the greenhouse where they have a Kim Il Sungya plant named after one's an orchid, and a Kim Jong Il.
2.5 minutes in, and we still have absolutely no attempt at explanation of what the term means.
Plant, one's a begonia, and we had to sign the guest book. And someone wrote, "Venus flytrap, eat your heart out." And my guide says, "What does that mean?" Now try to explain the term Venus flytrap to a North Korean, and then try to explain "eat your heart out." I sat there, I'm like, this expression makes absolutely no sense on any level.
Yeah, well, it turns out that happens in every language.
Yeah, of course.
I sometimes have been to China, and the translator is translating some guy. If you get a really good translator, they get everything, an interpreter. But then sometimes I'd have translators that were, kind of middle level, like HSK3 or whatever, and they would be like, "Yeah, what he just said is some Chinese idiom about bulls, and I don't have the slightest idea what it actually refers to." And so you're just going to have to nod and give thumbs up and do your best to figure out what he wants. And so it's just how it is. So anyway, woke means having awakened. Awake. Just as let's not complicate the matter here. Woke means having awakened to a view of reality that is based on structural oppression, and in particular that oppresses people like me to the exploitative benefit of people like them. Right. That's all woke means. Reality is the left woke calls it critical consciousness. You now have a critical consciousness of how the world is organized, but it's an oppressor versus oppressive dynamic, and that the belief is that the world, in fact, everything in the world, it's a metaphysical worldview. It is not. It's not like some beliefs. It is when it's all the way there, it's not that everybody gets the whole thing or knows that they're in it. It's a full-blown lens for how you view and interpret reality around you.
Can I say something? Because there's something I think conservatives don't get. Because conservatives are like, "Why do you keep talking about race?" It's like, that's like saying, "Why do you keep talking about the Constitution?" It is literally the basis for your worldview.
4.5 minutes in, still no explanation.
There's nowhere else to go. Everything has to be viewed through the, like you said, lens. And in some sense, it's a form of Gnosticism. That's right. Form of hidden knowledge that once you are initiated into the mysteries, you realize everyone else is asleep, right, or clueless. It's their version of being red-pilled.
That's right. That's exactly right. And everybody else has false consciousness, or they're asleep or whatever. Yeah. So woke means having woke up to the true structure of reality, and it's actually structured by systems of power that generate oppression. And it's always this kind of like victim mentality is built right in. So it's in identity politics. So it's people like me who are oppressed, unless you have like the white guilt thing. And then it's like people like those poor victims are oppressed, with the empathy stick. And so woke means that. It doesn't mean left. And it doesn't mean necessarily believes in Marxist stuff. It doesn't necessarily mean that you care too much about race, although that's often implicated as part of the structural beliefs about reality. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that you're pro-trans. It means that you believe that there is a oppressor-based structure to social reality that colors your entire interpretation of reality. Then you could add one further thing, because the woke actually do believe there's a duty of conscience that comes with this. The belief about oppression is that oppression is a dynamic. It's not that there's oppressor and oppressed as two separate things. They are two poles in a dynamic of oppression. So oppression creates an oppressed that's being done by an oppressor. So they're intrinsically linked. And the belief, at least from Marxism, from page, 2, I guess, of the Communist Manifesto, the main body of it, is explicitly that this is the engine. This is what it actually means for history to move. The entirety of human history is the history of the antagonism of classes. And so the oppressor versus oppressed is actually there in that first paragraph. So woke means that you woke up to this. Okay, fine. Well, what is...
Okay, we got the definition of woke that we all already knew. Thank you so much. Next, please.
Woke right mean? Well, we often think of it as woke left. I've been actually being much more precise for a couple of years and saying woke woke Marxism to describe what I'm talking about on the left, because I think it is derived from Marxism. Woke right is kind of this...
Wait, isn't it explicitly derived from Marxism? The Foucault and all them, they were explicitly taken from Marxism.
I think so. People
they're
argue.
pretty explicit about it.
They are quite explicit about it.
Okay.
And neo-Marxists were trying to revive Marxism that wasn't taking hold in the West. The postmodernists had kind of given up on classical Marxist analysis, but wanted to do a new Marxist-style power analysis, analysis of power and its manifestation through the more subtle aspects of life, like language and the structure of language and so on, as post-structuralism. And so, yes, it's derived from Marxism. So woke right are the basic definition is going to be people who act like the woke, although this is a very weak definition. People who act like the woke, same tactics, same victim mentality, same identity politics, same poor me, same, kind of very instrumental use of language, very instrumental use of knowledge, of concepts, of lies that means justify the end. So lying and smearing and canceling and struggle sessions are all on the table in order to gain ideological growth or consensus, but also to gain obviously power. And so, but that do so using so-called right-wing traditionalist values. Now, this error has been made in history, and it's extremely well documented by some of the people who made this error, because I think it is an error to pick up, so to speak, the ring of power here, to say, well, what the left is doing is working, so I'm going to do that too, even though it's plainly evil. And that error is most thoroughly documented by a very proud German man named Adolf Hitler, who wrote repeatedly that he did this.
So I'm going to need him to give some modern day examples, or I don't think I'm going to understand this. I get what he's saying. Okay, so let's see if I can break it down. Woke right. So you are awoken to the class struggle and viewing the world through the oppressor-oppressee lens and blah, 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 blah. Right, the right. So woke right. How does Hitler comport to that definition? He was the oppressed by the Jewish people, and so he used right-wing tactics to attack that thing in his brain, not in reality, obviously. Yeah, I'm still not getting it. 8.5 minutes in, still not getting it.
Mein Kampf talks about it. He says repeatedly that he's the one who's actually going to execute Marxism, and he's going to get rid of the parts that don't work, but he's going to execute Marxism. So in other words, woke
execute meaning put into practice, not kill.
Correct.
Okay, just to be clear.
Well, probably both, honestly.
Well, both.
But
yeah, sure.
Yeah. But yes, put into practice. And so in truth, woke right is like a piss you off slang term, and they're going to probably clip that and run with it but it is. That's part of the point, is if Sun Tzu said, if your enemy is of choleric temper, irritate him, And so woke right is like a piss you off slang term that means neo-fascist, where the neo here plays the same.
There we go. Very quick, very concise definition. Could have done that 9 minutes and 14 seconds ago. Oh, sir, what do you mean when you say woke right? Oh, I mean neo-fascism. How difficult was that? It took you 9 minutes to get to that. This is what I don't like about Jordan Peterson. Okay, because Jordan Peterson was actually a pretty smart guy for a long time. There probably is still some intelligence in there. But he goes on these completely unnecessarily long, like, diatribes about every single thing he talks about. And this guy just did the exact same thing. It took him 9 minutes and 14 seconds to say, woke right is a pejorative way for me to refer to neo-fascists. That's all he said. That's all he needed to say. I mean, that was... hopefully he keeps being concise now that he's gotten to the point, and we can get some modern day examples.
Same way as Neo plays a neo-Marxist. It's a new theory. It's not the old, early 20th century stuff, but it's this same reaction that, and this is how you can summarize that reaction very simply. Communism basically puts out this sales pitch. There's this oppressor versus oppressed dynamic. The oppression is evil. We're the only people who understand it. So we should get in power and have all the control, and we'll end it. And fascism is a reaction that says, actually, the communists believe this and they're right. Reality is structured that way. There is oppression, but that's what held society together. So we need to do more of it.
Okay.
And so the woke right are people who, in some measure or another, have bought into this. Now, they choose different locuses for the power structure. Some of them have this very kind of intellectual concept called the post-war or post-World War II liberal consensus. Some of them just stick it in Israel. Some of them expand on that and say that it's the Jews, and that's spelled Joos, Jews, the Jews. And
Jews with a
those,
Z.
well, it can end in a Z. That depends on how flippant we're being. But these lock together, right? They're interlocked because the post-war liberal consensus in the very respectable side's telling, and I don't think most of these guys do much anti-Semitism.
So we're saying like Fuentes, like Nick Fuentes, he would be woke right? Maybe recent Tucker Carlson. I want him to give some modern examples.
And they're telling part of the post-war liberal consensus was we're going to prevent the rise of fascism. We're also going to prevent the rise of Hitler. We will not have another Holocaust. And therefore, we also have to build Israel as a safe haven for the Jews. They may not jump in and say, and it's an ethno state and that's terrible, blah, blah, blah. They have other purposes with it. So there's this interlocking aspect between these kind of different factional beliefs, sort of like CRT and queer theory are not commensurate but interlocking beliefs through intersectionality. And, the intersectional faction became the solution to those infights between the various leftist groups. We're not to the synthesis part of that fight, I think, with this, neo-fascist woke right movement. But neo-fascist would be a more, respectable, calm, let's not piss people off just to piss them off term for it. But it's not meant to be confusing. And for me, it was confusing that people were confused because I'm very clear in my definition of woke.
Okay.
The word that I don't think fits is right. I don't think these people are on the right because they run a leftist operating system.
Am I reviewing any of that Trump Elon drama? Oh, you mean the fact that Elon just dropped some juicy information that every single one of us already knew? Yeah, I mean, maybe we can get into it later. It kind of just happened. We kind of all knew that, like, obviously Trump was on the list. It's like probably a shocking amount of powerful people that are on that list. I mean, probably a bunch of people on the right, a bunch of people on the left, a bunch of party Democrats, party Republicans, all kinds of people. I mean, I don't know. There's not much to review yet, I mean, I know everyone's going nuts over on X, but there isn't too much to review yet. It's just kind of like, okay, now it's like, I mean, is this like official? Does this make it official? Because Elon said it. I mean, we all kind of knew, right? We all knew it. We all knew. Anyone not know? I don't know how you could not know. I mean, we pretty much got the definition from this guy, so I'm kind of good with this video. So yeah, let's take a quick break. Let's take a quick break. So basically, I'm trying to figure out what the hell the woke right is. And it took James Lindsay like 9 minutes and 14 seconds to say, oh, it's my pejorative term for neo-fascist. Okay. 9 minutes and 14 seconds later. So I'm kind of done listening to this guy in particular. He kind of talks like Jordan Peterson in that he goes on and 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 never fucking lands the plane. But yeah, he hasn't really given an example of a person yet. I was kind of hoping he would do that, but there's only a couple minutes left and it takes him so long to land the plane that I'm just like, ugh. Oh, hey Godspeed, how you doing tonight? Yeah, let's take a quick break, hop on X and see if Elon's tweet is still up. And let's see. So we've got, here's the main thing. Or this is part of the start. So I just searched Elon and Trump. And it's just, there's so much fucking bullshit right now. I want to see if the tweet is the actual nuke is still up. Oh boy. So there's more now. The Trump tariffs will cause a recession in the second half of this year. Okay, so they're not friends anymore, basically. The relationship between Trump and Epstein is well established. Trump flew on. Let me make this a little bigger for y'all. Epstein likes to tell people he's a loner. And yet, if you talk to Donald Trump, a different Epstein, I've known Jeff for 15 years, terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. Yikes. Okay. President versus Elon. Mark this post for the future. The truth will come out. Yeah, so this was the big bomb that we all saw earlier. Real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. Now, there's not going to be too much today, you know? Like, this all just got started. There's not going to be too much to cover yet today. I know everyone else is covering it, but I don't like to cover things like the moment they happen because there's going to be a lot of back and forth. I mean, this is wild, though. The easiest way to save money in our budget is to terminate Elon's subsidies and contracts. SpaceX will begin decommissioning its Dragon spacecraft immediately. Fantastic. Elon has never asked me for a thing. I mean, I got rid of the EV mandate, but he's never asked me for a thing. I think that's an amazing attribute. All right, here we go. This was the big post. That's an ad. Let's see what else we got. At Grok, is this true? Yeah. Okay, so we all already knew this. We all already knew this. None of this is new. None of this is news. We all knew all of this already. Everyone knew this. Yeah, it is weird that they broke up. It's very strange. I love Donald Trump as much as geez, not today. True. If he knew, this is weird. Like, this is weird. Make it a little bit bigger for you guys too. Just a little bit bigger. Yeah, there we go. Full screen for you. That's weird. Lil Tay. Who the fuck? Who are these people? There's too many people. Yeah, like, this doesn't really look good for anybody. This doesn't look good at all. That's just too much. Oh, this poor old lady. You're both amazing. Please stop fighting. Get back together. Kiss and make up. No, don't kiss and make up. This is amazing. This is amazing stuff. Yeah, see, this doesn't look good. So you're saying he willingly worked with a PDF and kept his secret. Like, what? That's not good. That's not good. Kenny Evans, Projection 101. Who's projecting? I'm not sure what you're referring to. Welcome to chat. Some more of the, no, stop fighting, mom and dad. This again, rough stuff. If you knew, then why would you? Yeah, that's not a good look. I made this with Grok. Oof. That's gross. Yeah, let's get some evidence. I want some evidence. What's the projection? This is right on right violence. What does this have to do with the left at all? Yeah, how long have you known this? Why did you wait until now? I'm wondering that too. It's called holding people accountable for nonsense. But anyway, this is hilarious. I don't think we need to get too much into it today because I don't think there's that much to get into yet today. I think we need to watch this one unfold, you know? I think we need to see what's going on. We're going to get back to the woke right thing because I still want to know what the fuck this means. Okay. We're going to check out, see what Andrew Wilson thinks it means. Because I'm sure he has a very different opinion than this guy. I just have a feeling. I'm no fan of Andrew Wilson, but he is on the right. So he would be one of the authorities in this matter. Let's find out. We've told people liberty.
A libertarian who's also, of course, into alternative lifestyles.
Oh, Bill, Elijah Schaffer retweet.
The authentic right wouldn't do what? Because we just read a lot of tweets. I mean, when Kash Patel changed his tune after getting confirmed as FBI director, that was all I needed. Yeah, Kash. Dude, the FBI had been dropping the ball on like a lot of stuff lately.
Tweeted you today and he didn't retweet me favorably. So I call up a good friend of mine. I'm like, who is this guy? And he goes, all you need to know is he got in a lot of trouble recently. Just do a Google search, see why he left the Blaze and so on and so forth. And just goes to show that, you know.
Yeah, he left the Blaze because a woman lied about him. That's why a woman lied and said that she was by him and never presented really any evidence of that whatsoever. Named Sydney Watson. Right? That's what happened to him. So nice to see this propaganda, but Elijah Schaffer, I would like to see some definitive proof he actually did anything wrong rather than Sydney Watson whining because Nick Fuentes went on the stream one time and she cried about it to Blaze execs. Oh my God, I did trauma and he was drinking sometimes when he was on the set. That was the best part about going down to his studio. Best part about going down to Elijah Schaffer's studio was the very first thing he did was say, "What's your drink of choice, Mr. Wilson?" And I said, well, that's awful nice of you to ask, Mr. Schaffer. I would love a vodka and soda. And he was like, we'll get right on that.
Yeah.
And Uppy served one.
What does this have to do with the woke right? I hate how Andrew titles his videos and then talks about something else and then leaves like the preamble of like some other shit he was talking about for like a bunch of minutes before actually getting to the point. It's not even that long of a video.
On immediately.
Like, get to the point, bro.
Very nice of the guy.
Get to the point.
Some people have a lot of influence in a very narrow echo chamber. But what I want to do is I want to respond a little bit to what he has to say here and engage some of these concepts. So let's just turn to this very quickly here. So we look at this issue and we ask this question, what is the woke right? Now, some of you might be asking yourself, what in the world is this little picture that I've put up there? Well, this comes from, I think it's Pepe the Frog. And what's interesting is that all of
like these right-wing idiots are like, you know, I don't know, 10 years behind on. Oh man, where's the? This isn't good. I want to see.
Yeah, Godspeed. You should remember we literally just watched one of her videos like a little while ago. I'm not a huge fan of her. She has some decent takes sometimes. I never watched her on the Blaze ever because that was just super boring. Oh, okay. We're gonna talk about it finally?
I don't give a shit about this guy spurging out about some stupid cartoon frog. I want to watch Lindsay.
Matt Walsh says children is evil. Jack Prosobiec calls for Christian men to build families, lead their communities, and defend their nation.
I argue with this guy sometimes on Twitter. He seems like a fun guy.
Thousands of young conservatives are rejecting drag culture, open borders, and the death spiral of liberal democracy.
At least I think I argue with him sometimes on Twitter. I'm pretty confident I do. Isn't it like
they're never going to get to the point?
And now,
none of these videos are going to get to the point.
Called woke. James Lindsay, an atheist, once co-belligerent against the excesses of the left, is sounding the alarm, not against Antifa and not against the left, but actually against the right itself. See, in his eyes, anyone who speaks in terms of collective identity, national destiny, or religious authority has gone off the rails. He's adopted the phrase woke right to describe these people. But let's be clear. These men are not dressing up Marxist categories in red, white, and blue. And they're not crying victim while their group identity is simultaneously being advantaged. They're not co-opting oppressive narratives falsely. Instead,
Pride Month is canceled because Elon and Trump got divorced, like Plead the Griff said earlier.
They're simply rejecting a hollow system that tells Christians to keep quiet, to keep their faith private, and to keep the public square morally sterile. The people being called woke right are those saying enough is enough. They're done pretending that Drag Queen Story Hour is a constitutional.
That's not how he just described it a minute ago. This is not how it was just described. He described it as being neo-fascist. That's what he said. He did not say all these extra words. So there's the right, which is being conservative, traditionally conservative, and then there's the woke right, which is being neo-fascist. These two are just, this guy's just yammering. And I don't understand why. Yeah, that's what he said. But he's the one that started all this fucking shenanigans.
Blessing. They're done pretending that open borders are a civic virtue. And they're done pretending that America can survive without a spine or even a soul.
The teleprompter has told me a lot of words here to say. I wrote them earlier, and I practiced this cadence because it sounds very official-like.
It doesn't. It sounds really pretentious. It's really annoying, actually.
And when things sound official-like, you can officially believe everything that I'm officially saying. Now, over to... when he drops the cadence, I got a feeling he's going to be like 10 times less annoying.
We're going to be talking about James Lindsay and Jordan Peterstein, the two of them, Jordan Peterstein. Stein, I think, is a...
Okay, that was funny. That was a good redeemer. Okay, that was a good redeemer. It was a good redeemer. But that's not what I'm looking for. I'm actually looking for the debate itself. Okay, let's take a look.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. Hurry up and take a look.
What are you in trouble for now?
The woke right. It's a fraught term, right? Because you have woke, which they...
For that. Nice to see you, Dr. Lindsay.
It's good to see you, Dr. Peterson.
It's been 2 years, eh?
It's been 2 years.
Yeah. So, what do you...
One day I'll be in that chair and it'll be like, nice to see you, Dr. Palpatine. And I'll be like, yes, it's nice to be here, Mr. Peterson.
Why would you with that? The lack of marketing from the Wilson marriage is just incredible to me. Every time. It's just incredible.
After seeing you on Stein and Crowder, can I ask a favor? In the resurrection, please find me so I can drink my first beer with you. Yeah, that'd be cool.
What are you in trouble for now?
The woke right.
Lay it out, man.
It's a fraught term, right? People see it as paradoxical because you have woke, which they with left. You have right, which they obviously with the right.
I don't want to talk to either of them or anyone. Nobody. No thanks. Pass. I'll debate people, but I don't want to talk to them. That's boring.
Right. And so now you've got a paradox. And so I've caused myself some trouble by calling a radical segment, not the whole right, a radical segment of the right, woke right, which I kind of started doing, I guess, last fall, September. Yeah. I started using it before that, the term. I didn't invent.
Jordan seems like he's boring and uses a lot of words to say nothing. That's because everything that you just said was 100% true, Godspeed. He is boring and he uses a lot of words to say nothing, and he highlighted that to the most extreme I have ever seen during that recent Jubilee appearance that every corner of the internet has been ragging on him for. If you missed it, we did watch it live. I did upload a separate video. It is on my YouTube channel.
The term. A lot of people accuse me of inventing the term or credit me with it. This term has been in rough circulation, floating around in the internet space for at least since middle of 22. So it's not a brand new term. I just adopted it and went kind of hard about it. And the simplest explanation I give people for, well, what do you mean by woke right? How does that make sense? And I say, well, it's woke people who call themselves conservatives. And some of them don't, though. They call themselves right wing. And they distinguish that conservatives and right wing are different. But it's woke people. So the whole suite of behaviors, beliefs, even the deep metaphysical constructs underneath those beliefs. And as you recently pointed out, I think the psychology that generates those beneath all of that, the cluster B personality disorders.
Don't make fun of Peterson. He helped me make my bed.
The word woke got hijacked. Well, the way he described it earlier, and I kind of tend to agree with the definition he gave, it took him a very long time to get to that definition, which is why I was comparing him to Jordan Peterson before you all arrived here. But it's viewing the world through an oppressor-oppressee, identitarian type lens. And you can do that from the left or the right. So someone new in chat, Kenny, I think, said it's an oxymoron. It's not an oxymoron. It makes perfect sense. You can view the world that way and espouse conservative values as the sort of cure for. You can be like, oh, hello, left. You think that the world should be viewed through an oppressor-oppressee lens? Why, yes. Why, yes, I agree. Let's do traditional values only. Perfect. No? Oh, you don't agree? Okay. So if that's what woke means, that's what they're purporting that it means, I don't know. So I watched some of Jordan's old lectures from before the whole compelled speech argument broke out and he became really famous. And he used to be like a pretty intelligent, well, I have to assume that somewhere inside of there is still intelligence, but he used to be like an intelligent guy. All right, Wi-Fi, let's hear it. What's your proprietary definition of the word woke? I may agree. I don't know yet. Because I'm not particularly attached to any definition. I also have no dog in this fight. This is right on right violence. I don't care. Good luck to all of you. There's a lot of right on right violence going on right now. Elon Trump, woke right, not woke right. There's way more left on left violence, but you know.
Are presenting and psychopathologies, psychopathy itself sometimes, all of that kind of feeds upward into this concept of woke, which,
well, like, he was a good professor when he was just doing that, when he was just like a philosophy, psychology, whatever he was teaching type professor guy. Like, he was good at that. Martin Creed, I thought the woke meant an awareness of, I'm assuming you meant an awareness of social inequalities. So it's viewing the world through like according to them. Oh, Wi-Fi. Yeah, you're talking about like the esoteric meta term that we used to use decades ago. Obviously it did. Yeah. If you're referring to it that way, then yeah, it definitely got hijacked. But that's why, we talk about definitions sometimes, and there's like the dictionary definition of a word, and then there's the way that we use the word in society, and that can change. That changes. And then there's proprietary definitions, which is how any individual uses the word absent of all those other factors. And that's where that's why people talk past each other in debates, because they have different proprietary definitions of words. They're not even talking to each other about the same thing. Let's get a little more of this,
which I think we can talk pretty fruitfully about. But
when can we get to that part?
I don't believe it can only.
Rare Andrew W. When I agree with him, I agree with him. Get to the point, James.
Be presented through left-wing causes. You can present it in terms of right-wing causes or religious causes or other causes, because it's the pathological expression of an ideology or of a belief structure that ultimately is woke. And so this term is confused.
Godspeed, as always, with your informative and nuanced proprietary definitions of words. We appreciate you.
Andrew, your F&F appearances are better than whatever. Need to see you back. After Gary the Numbers Guy inevitably stabs Myron Gaines in the back, then I will be happy to go back and hop on F&F with Myron and all them guys. I love Myron, by the way, but I just can't stand that guy. He's obviously a 2-bit criminal, and I just don't want any with people like that.
People, it's angered people. I decided to try to put.
Who is it angered?
Once that guy started trying to cancel people online, and who's the guys around.
This is a heavy word for the beginning of a conversation, but this is what has dismayed me. I knew it would anger the people that it applies to, in my opinion, because who would want to be called woke right, first of all? And second of all, it limits their ability to interact.
I don't think. Yeah, I can't imagine anybody on the right would want to be called woke. They would get really butthurt about that, I assume. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want to be called woke, but I don't think anyone would ever make that extreme error in judgment.
Because they have a label that's not a good label that sticks to them. But what I'm dismayed over is that almost I hate to use this word so glibly, but what I refer to sort of as a bookmark as elite MAGA, or the more who's who of the conservative movement seems entirely captured by this as well. And they also became upset, saw me as a turncoat and a traitor against the movement.
One of the things that I think, you tell me what you think about this, but I don't think we should name any names in this podcast, if that's okay.
Oh, he wouldn't name any freaking names in the... He wouldn't name any names in the other one either. Name some fucking names. I'm guessing he's talking about like the Nick Fuentes types. That's my guess. Like, if they mean neo-fascist, then they have to mean, yeah, ultra MAGA. Like, what did the MAGA elite aren't woke right, but they got mad at James for using the word woke right to describe people that we will not be mentioning the names of in this podcast because Jordan likes to do this. Ugh. It's so, this whole little talk is so disingenuous. I can't stand it.
With you.
That's totally fine.
Okay, we can talk about why that is as we progress. Okay, good. I mean, I wasn't going to make that a cut and dried rule, but I have my reasons. So you just referred to...
Yeah, you don't want to piss anyone on the right off and end up like James Lindsay with everyone hating you.
Some comments I made on Fox News and also to some degree on Rogan, talking about, and I've actually written a fair on this. You know, there's been this idea that the extremes of political belief meet, hey?
Yeah.
And so
talking about horseshoe theory.
Let's hash that out a little bit. You seem to find useful or possibly...
Okay, we're going to pause again to watch something funny. I'm sure you've all seen this, but we're going to watch it anyway. It's really funny.
When me and Brad first met...
I'm sure you've all seen this, but this is hilarious.
When me and Brad first met, I didn't think we'd get along, but turns out we kind of agree on everything. Your racial identity is the most important thing. Everything should be looked at through the lens of race.
Jinx, you owe me a Coke. We both have a lot of opinions about people of color, even though we barely know any.
I say colored people, but as long as we're classifying them, we both think minorities are a united group who think the same and act the same.
And vote the same. You don't want to lose your black card. Sorry, I don't know. I just think we should
roll back discrimination laws so we can hire based on race again. Jinx, now you owe me a Coke. Hey, tell them what you told me yesterday.
White actors should only do voices for white cartoon characters.
I've been saying that for years. Stick to your own.
Us white people, we have so much privilege.
I agree. It is a privilege to be white. Ask him about interracial dating.
All I said is that black men who date white women have internalized racism, and white men that date ethnic women are fetishizing them.
Guys against interracial dating now. Like, am I being pranked? Did Boomer put you up to this?
Ugh, you know that taco place is white-owned?
White people should be making white foods, like Kraft macaroni and cheese, no seasoning, not even salt. It's like he's a mind reader. I mean, I've been pushing for segregation forever, and my man does what?
I created an improv comedy show exclusively for ethnic people.
Guy segregates comedy on my birthday.
White people need to stop wearing dreadlocks, and they need to stop appropriating black people's music.
Shaved heads and country music, the way God intended.
You know all white people are racist.
I'm listening.
Even if you have a black wife or a black friend group, you're still really racist.
You know, we just kicked a guy out of the organization for having a black girlfriend, but if you can promise me he's still really racist, we'll consider letting him back in. Black people should only shop at black businesses.
I guess the only thing we really disagree about is I think white people are the root of all evil.
But what did I tell you, though? If we can narrow that down to a certain group of tiny-hatted white people, I think we can come to an understanding.
Technically, I don't consider Jewish people white.
Neither do I.
So basically, I think that sums up what is the woke right. You know, I think that sums it up. It's the woke version of the right. That's an old video, but it popped up in it actually just popped up in my feed earlier today. Or I probably wouldn't have remembered it, honestly.
Except this additional diagnostic distinction, which would be cluster B or dark tetrad.
That's right. I actually wrote about this. I don't know if you know, in 2020.
That specifically?
In December, yes, in 2020. I called the article something like, and it was extremely interesting. But of course, and by them, of course, I'd been reading the postmodern social justice left phenomenon.
There we go.
How do I fit in with my society? And so I write this long essay. I got in trouble for this. I had him publish it on Christmas. I was so excited about it. Christmas Day, we put this out. And, very long essay explaining that this is what I see as at the root, because I was trying to diagnose and explain to people what nobody was calling woke yet at the time, at the end of 2020, or maybe we had just begun to call woke. We were trying to diagnose and explain this social justice left phenomenon. And so I put out this essay and said, I think at the root, underneath the whole thing, there's the same psychopathologies that motivated people like Lenin and Stalin and all this. And I didn't have the psychological chops. I was aware of dark triad or tetrad terminology. I did know quite a bit about the cluster B personality disorders because I knew some people.
Who gives a shit? What is the woke right?
Those are
That's what I'm saying. Someone just who is one? Just name me one. Somebody in chat. Who is a woke right? Who is one of them? We've watched 2 videos now, and we still don't know who one of them is. And based on Andrew's face and the brevity of the rest of this video, I'm assuming it's not going to be here. So let's move on. Let's see if we can find it somewhere else. Because we're going to watch this debate. P.F. Jung versus Wick and Ryan. That's what we're doing tonight, actually. That's what we're actually doing tonight. We're watching a debate because you guys know my favorite thing, debate review. So that's what we're going to do. Let's see if trigonometry can get the answer out of him. They're like kind of... It's you. Godspeed. You know what? I'll accept the answer. You're the woke right. You are the woke right. And, maybe when we do find out the actual definition, it'll end up excluding you. But until we do, it's you, buddy. It's you. Pleasure to have you in chat as the representative of the woke right. Let's see if trigonometry can get the answer.
You mentioned the term woke right. It's a term you and I have both used, but it'd be interesting to talk about it for a number of reasons. But first of all, what do you mean by that term? Because a lot of people are very confused about it.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the best term. It's more accurate.
Bro, he's... The closer to today that we get with these videos, like they started like 5-6 months ago with this James fella. The closer we get to today, he's like, in the first one, he's like, oh, it's, it's neo-fascist. In the second one, he's like, well, Jordan, it's a whole bunch of words and I'm never going to get to the point. And now with them, he's like, well, it's kind of not a good term. Oh, God. Martin, I'm woke and I'm always right. Maybe that is what it means. That makes me woke right, I guess. By your proprietary definition of woke, the one that we understand from a long time ago. not the one that they use
I don't
now.
use the word woke too. I use it a little too casually still, generally speaking. But I've tried to be very specific when it comes to it, to use the phrase woke Marxism, as in that it's a species of Marxist thought, yada, yada, yada. So we can very easily place that on the Marxist left, right? Well, woke right, another term that might work for that is woke fascism. And just like woke Marxism is technically woke neo-Marxism, this could be called woke neo-fascism. The more syllables.
Why is it woke?
Well, that's what I wanted to get to. So there are kind of two ways to look at why it's woke.
So get to it. Oh my God, he's done this. If he has now talked about this on every podcast, on everything, everywhere. If he hasn't gotten this down to a concise answer at this point, what is he even doing here?
And one is kind of philosophical and one is practical. The practical side is look at how they behave. They behave exactly like the woke. There's the targeted influence campaigns. There's the manufacturing of what the postmodernists called legitimation by parology or whatever. They create the illusion that there's massive support for this and massive distaste for that, using social media manipulations like we just talked about. They are highly invested in identity politics. The answer for them to leftist identity politics is a reaction identity politics or reactionary identity politics, equal and opposite, or in biblical terms, answering evil with evil.
We've been talking about the why are we all talking about this now? We've been talking about this since the first Trump election. We've been talking about identity politics on the left and identity politics on the right. It's back and forth. Why are we talking about this now? None of this is just because he started using this word a few months ago. Who cares?
Evil, which the Bible says not to do, by the way, very specifically. And so there's this, grievance, identity, everything's bad for white Christian men, straight white Christian men. We're the oppressed minority under this. There's an ideology, and this kind of bleeds into the philosophical idea, but we'll get more specific with that in a second. There's this kind of belief that there's this ruling class that's erected an ideology to marginalize people like them that sounds very much like woke, except instead of saying that it's like the white people the white ruling class created white supremacy to marginalize people of color, especially black and indigenous, and their ways of knowing from getting inside. The woke right or the woke fascist side says instead that following World War II, on the back of Hitler and the idea of never again, there was erected a post-war liberal consensus. Starting in the 1940s, immediately, starting in 1945, the creation of the United Nations was part of this. The signing on to the United Nations was part of this. They assigned Bill Buckley, to having done a route to drive the true conservatives to the margins so that
Godspeed. Any ideology that fully encompasses your mind and you can't have any kind of anything outside of that, I think falls under that purview of like a pseudo religion.
That a false post-war liberal consensus conservative movement could rise up, the neocons, and hold them out. So the neocons become this kind of hegemonic force within the conservative faction that edges out so-called true conservatism and these more dangerous, so to speak, ideas like fascist ideas, like Carl Schmitt's ideas about unbound executives and friend-enemy politics and so on, that these ideas all had to be pushed to the side on the pretext that World War II or a Adolf Hitler can never rise again. And so therefore, the true conservatives who represented conservative politics and kept at bay the beast of the left, which they say is that the right's true function is to keep at bay the left. In other words, to have a war, right versus left, with everybody in the middle, I guess, taking fire in the crossfire. But they believe that this post-war liberal consensus and the neoconservative movement literally was designed to marginalize their perspectives and to keep these other more radical right-wing ideas out of play. So this is a very woke way of thinking about the world, that there was a structural construction of the social and political and cultural environment designed to exclude people like them in order to be able to achieve certain political agendas. And now they believe that they've woken up to these ideas. Woke. They've found them again. They've read the forbidden philosophers, Carl Schmitt, Julius Evola, James Burnham, and so on. They've read these things, and they're bringing back a true conservatism that was excluded from politics roughly since the end of World War II on the bogus pretense of preventing the rise of another fascist like Hitler or Franco or Pinochet. And so there's a very practical explanation for why they're woke, but especially their behavior. Lots of lying, lots of character attacks, lots of saying no enemies to the right, but they don't actually even attack the left that's their enemy, so to speak, at all. They only attack other conservatives. Lots of power plays, lots of manipulative, speech.
Ooh, who are you talking about? I need to know. I don't need to know, but I'd like to.
And then there's the philosophical, deeper aspect. Why woke? What does woke mean? Woke up to a structural politics that marginalizes people like me. And we need to band together in solidarity, no enemies to the right, in order to be able to create a powerful enough oppressed coalition to flip over the power structure by putting ourselves at the center and claiming power for ourselves. This is explicitly woke, having a critical consciousness about the way the world is organized. Tucker Carlson, for example, if you listen to Tucker,
Tucker Carlson, for example. Okay, chat, we have an example now. Finally, we have an example. Tucker Carlson. All right. And he's got 4 minutes to explain this, apparently, according to this clip. 3.5, actually. So Tucker Carlson, that's his first example. That's one that I mentioned. All right, so maybe I am understanding this. Let's hear it.
A lot of people really like Tucker. Tucker is pretty critical of America. He's not doing a Howard Zinn.
Yeah, that's true, and people do like him. It was those can't cuck the tuck videos. Those were interesting. I remember those back in the day.
Critical America theory. Howard Zinn being the one who wrote the People's History, so the Marxist history of the United States, propaganda. He's writing a different critical history of the United States. Well, the Constitution was, not really adequate to prevent all of this. There is a post-World War II liberal consensus or world order that we're all being made subject to. Well, look at how America was involved in all of these things. America bad, America bad, America bad. Also, the UK was pretty bad too, and America bad, America bad. There's this kind of constant critical negativity. You see some of these characters, I mentioned Tucker Carlson, but you see some of these characters like Stephen Wolfe, who wrote the book The Case for Christian Nationalism, has put multiple times on social media, and I don't know what he said in public talks. I've only heard one of his public talks, but you see him on social media saying more than once that he has adopted critical theory specifically for his own purposes and to his own ends. He was recently saying on social media, somebody sent it to me, so I have to, I guess, confirm this, but he was saying that, in fact, the critical theory he uses is not the perverted version of critical theory that the left has used. It's its own more correct version of critique that goes back before the left, yada, yada. And so how do you not call the attempt to awaken a critical consciousness of the power structure that you believe has delegitimized your movement? How do you not call that woke, when woke means having awoken to a critical consciousness?
I know why. Because I know why you don't call it that. Because it's so boring. We already know all this. Like, yeah, there's an identitarian right and an identitarian left. We all knew this. We all knew all this. We always knew this. I don't know what. Was he not invited to the party 10 years ago when we started talking about all this?
That there's a structural force that has delegitimized people in your political positionality. It's the exact same thing, unfortunately. It's just pushing a people in place kind of driven fascism as opposed to a we're going to end all oppression by becoming the oppressor's communism.
It's very well explained, and that's kind of why I have been calling it, even though I'm not sure it is the best term, but the behavior is the same. right? It's quite obviously the same: victimhood,
cancel culture,
lying about history, all of this.
Yeah, rewriting history, lying about people, digging up people's past to cancel them. It's unbelievable.
The one complaint that people have made about that I do think is valid is that they're not comparable in terms of influence and power. The woke left control for a period of time.
That's true. That's fair. Progressives and leftists are definitely have more like airtime, more sway than like the identitarian right. But they also have more they have more political capital than regular liberals. And I would say regular conservatives have more political capital. Well, currently they have more political capital than all the other groups. But they definitely have more political capital than regular liberals and the woke right, if we're going to use that term. Which, by the way, after today, we're never going to use that term. What a stupid, pointless term. Just, they're neo-fascists. We can just call them what they are. This is boring.
Controlled what felt like everything. The woke right isn't anywhere near that level of influence at all. And frankly, I wonder whether, having talked about it as much as you and I have, we've maybe drawn too much attention to a very small fringe. Because when we went to the Trump rally, I didn't see it. I talked to a lot of people there. I listened to all the people on stage. I didn't hear in either the statements or the response to what people were saying, the type of conversation that you see online. So it seems to me like it's a tiny fringe that's being amplified by bot farms and foreign meddling and whatever. I think increasingly, I don't think of it as real, even though, as you say, there are one or two people who are very influential in American politics who have flirted with some of these ideas.
Yeah.
Okay. I think are we all understanding now? We're all kind of getting it. I think we know what it is now. We're going to watch this one segment of a debate. Robert Knorr is involved here. And Robert Knorr, in my opinion, is probably the best faith right-wing debater I've ever seen. He's like, do you guys, are any of you familiar with Playing with Fire? It's a channel run by this guy named Alex. He's like a red pill guy, like a men's empowerment lifestyle coach kind of guy. I don't really agree with many of his prescriptions about life and what men should be doing and yada yada. Some of them I do. But he is one of the best faith debaters ever. Robert Knorr is like the political version of him. And again, I'm not a conservative, but credit where credit's due. You know what I mean? He's a cool dude. So let's see if he can make a little more sense of this. Also, apparently Andrew Wilson's in this also. So
sometimes I imagine, but
we'll get a little more of Andrew. Maybe he'll get an actual opinion out. Yo, welcome to chat, Chris. And yes, he does. He's a very interesting face. But he seems like a nice guy. All right, who do we have here? They are not all conservatives. We have Radical Coder over here, Ryan, I believe. I don't know who these guys are. Obviously, I have no idea who these two dots are here. All right. This is a short video, so it's not the whole debate, obviously.
You being an aggrieved victim that you
bro.
I did watch this Andrew Wilson debate. So he's debating this guy, Misfit Patriot, and it was on the woke right. And
oh, okay. So Rob's going to give his assessment of Andrew Wilson arguing with somebody else about the woke right. I'm okay watching this. We could watch this. I respect Rob Noor insofar as he's a good faith actor and a good faith debater. And even if I don't agree with him on, politics and policy and stuff like that, he seems like a good dude. So
Andrew was taking the position the woke right doesn't exist. Misfit Patriot is saying that it does exist. And I think I had this pegged going into this debate that basically it's just Misfit Patriots had some like bad interactions with groypers. And so that's the axe that he has to grind.
Yeah, that's basically what we're getting to. It's groypers. It's Nick Fuentes. It's neo-fascists. It's literally the comedy video that we just watched. I mean, it's literally the comedy video that we just watched. Which was fantastic. Again, haven't seen that in years, but wow, it's a classic. Yeah, it's why are we talking about this so much now? That's what confuses me. Because this was a much bigger thing. Like, why weren't we having this debate back during like the Charleston protests and the tiki torches and all that? Like, wouldn't that be the woke right by all their definitions? I don't know. Let's see.
That hardly justifies using the term woke right as it's being used. And I think Andrew just did a tremendous job of dog walking him once more.
Yes. Crying faces in the chat for Godspeed for his victimhood status.
Or what this debate basically comes down to is a definition being so broad that it encompasses everyone, including the very person using that definition to criticize. So in this debate, Andrew's not only able to prove that based on the definition of woke right that Misfit Patriot is given, that the founding fathers were all woke, but that Misfit Patriot himself is woke based on that definition. And it makes it damning because then the only other concession you need is the reason to employ the term woke right is to be derogatory because you want to damage those groups of people.
Yeah, but I mean, the people who, as we just learned, it's literally a pejorative term for neo-fascist. So if that, I don't know. We'll see.
If you admit that basically everyone falls into this category and we're only using this particular term against these particular people because we want to be derogatory towards them, then it kind of shows that it's sort of not a good faith interpretation of what that term would mean. And that's exactly what James Lindsay's doing. I don't know Misfit Patriot as well, but what Lindsay's doing is he has joined a coalition of people that he saw as the biggest institutional threat at the time, which was sort of the woke on the left, the cultural Marxists that had institutional power in everything from our culture, in the entertainment industry, our media, academia industry, and our political industry. And so he saw them as the imminent threat. And so he aligned himself with all sorts of groups, whether it be Christian nationalists, whether it be trad people, whether it be red pill people, whether it be traditional conservatives, neoconservatives, fiscal conservatives, populist, etc. Right? And so Lindsay jumps in with that crew in order to like sort of be someone that's like, oh yeah, I'm with you. Let's beat the woke. But then once he sees that victory is imminent, what he wants to do is then prevent the next set of enemies that he sees. Now, Lindsay's sort of this centrist or liberal type person, so he doesn't want like real conservatives. And so what he wants to do is then label them as, you're woke. One of the issues this comes up the most in is when it comes to discussions of Israel. And so oftentimes what you see is any criticism whatsoever of Israel, like maybe a criticism I give that's like, yeah, I think Israel has little.
Oliver Keyhouse. Is that his last name? I saw a clip. I thought he had a different last name. But look, again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm no fan of Andrew Wilson. I'm not a big fan of Jim Bob. I mean, they're a broken clock. Everybody's right every now and then about some stuff. But holy God, Oliver is the worst fucking faith person alive. And he is no business debating on behalf of liberals. Ever. Never. First of all, he's not a liberal. He is not a liberal. He's a leftist. And maybe, well, he's definitely progressive. Maybe he's a leftist. I'm not sure. But he is not a liberal. And his comprehension of feminism is nonsense. That debate was freaking crazy. I watched that off stream because we did so many Andrew Wilson versus feminism debates, and I just couldn't listen to Oliver again because I had just watched him debate Jim Bob and get absolutely obliterated then too. But that freaking clippy crap he pulled when he knows full and damn well that clip was not Andrew outing himself as anything. That clip was Andrew taking apart Oliver's dumbass fucking ideas about everything, all of his ideas, all at once, his whole entire structure of understanding. And oh God, yeah, I saw him rage quit the Cooley debate. That was another giant embarrassment for Oliver. Like, he doesn't embarrass himself enough without interacting with other human beings. Oh God, progressives and leftists make me so fucking mad. So obnoxious. Who, Oliver? Yeah, of course he describes himself that way. And he probably is. I mean, feminism is the most nonsensically, gigantically defined word ever. I said this the other night, if you have 10 feminists in a room, you have 10 people that don't agree with each other in a room. But he's awful. He's awful. He's so bad at debating. His understanding of all of it is just, yeah, he did the same. Andrew literally made him apologize live during the debate about the Jim Bob clip, and then he goes and does it again. Like, and then to double down in front of Cooley while he's playing him the context, to just be like, no, like, nope, I can't see that. Like, goodbye. Like, bro, get off the internet. Get off the internet. You're not helping anyone. You're definitely not helping anyone on the left, for sure. 100% you're not helping. Like, this is not helpful. Honestly, all of those debates, except for the Kayla ones, were mind-numbing and vomit-inducing and aneurysm invoking. There we go. Oh, God, that guy. Get off the internet. Jesus. Absurd. And every time he gets mad, he literally turns into a child. He's like, oh, God. So bad. Okay, Rob, please explain. Yeah, exactly. What he represents. Okay, we're going to do this right now. We're going to do this right now because these fucking people make me so angry, and they're destroying liberalism by not being liberals and pretending to be fucking liberals. Okay? There are 3 parts of the left, okay? Three parts of the left side of politics. Right when you step across the line of centrism to the left, one step to the left, you have liberals. Liberals believe in capitalism, first of all. So if anyone is saying eat the rich, they're not a liberal. They're illiberal. They're not liberals. Liberals believe in free speech. So if anyone is canceling people, congratulations, they are not liberals. They are illiberal. They're progressives or leftists. They are not liberal. Liberals believe in some kind of social safety net, some sort of stakeholder capitalism, a regulated capitalism so that it doesn't go run amok. That's liberalism. Oliver's absolutely that guy. He is absolutely that guy. He's proven he's that guy before. Have you look up the allegations against him? There's allegations against him of doing skeevy shit on the internet with underage girls. Like this isn't even out of his wheelhouse. This is like where on earth he gets off preaching to anybody about who may or may not have like PDF tendencies is absurd. It's absurd. The next step, when you keep going, is progressives. That's the people who are like, there's absolutely nothing wrong at all with the Black Lives Matter protests actually turning into riots most of the time and causing billions of dollars in property damage to privately owned businesses. They're the people who are like, there should be absolutely nothing, no pushback whatsoever against anything LGBTQEXYZ, okay? Those are progressives. These are the people who are like in the street with Palestine flags going, free Palestine, river to the sea. There is no in between. There's no nuance at all. There's nothing, no information. I'm blocking my ears. Those are progressives. Those are what we liberals like to call champagne socialists. Okay. These are the Hassan Pikers, the Sam Cedar kind of dabbles in this kind of area. There's a lot of them out there. These are the girls on TikTok that choose the bear, even though it doesn't make any actual logical sense. These are all these people, okay? The eat the rich, even though I'm not actually a communist. I don't even know what that word means. These are the people who don't know what any of their fucking ideas and ideologies actually mean. They can't back them up in logic. These are the people, when you go to a protest and you try to interview them and you ask one follow-up question and they're like, I don't think I want to talk to you anymore, because they don't have answers. They don't have answers for anything. That's a progressive. When you take another step to the left, this is your last step off the edge. Now you're in communist Marxist territory, actual leftists. They don't care about any of that progressive bullshit. They care about destroying capitalism and instituting communism. And that's all they care about. They don't care about anything else. That's all they care about. If you're wondering who some actual liberals are, yeah, the libertarians, dude. I used to be a libertarian, and then I woke up one day and all the libertarians were like way off to the right, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess we're done here. Guess we're done here. I'm looking to the left for you guys, but in real life I'm looking to your right. It's okay. Camera's backwards. If you want to know who some actual liberals are, I'm an actual liberal. Unfortunately, because of his absolute inability to stay out of personal drama on the internet, Destiny is an actual liberal. Hutch is an actual liberal. Pisco is an actual liberal. Not So Erudite is an actual liberal. As far as like bigger names go, Ezra Klein is an actual liberal. Those people are actual liberals. And we are a dying breed. We're a dying breed. And the reason so many people ran to the right during this election is because the Democratic Party has become Jimmy Dore, a little bit. He's kind of he's like kind of like a basic center left, which is okay, yeah, I would say I'll give him that. But those people are regular liberals. And the reason everyone ran to the right and why young men are running to the right is because the Democratic Party and liberalism are overrun with leftists and progressives, mostly progressives, because leftists they don't even involve themselves in actual Democratic Party stuff or liberal politics or policies because they They don't care. They want communism. They use the word liberal as a derogatory term. If you talk to a leftist and they're like, oh, you're a liberal, that's a derogatory term. They look at you, not you, they look at me, people like me, maybe some of you, as conservatives. They do not, like, we're not the same at all. Progressives pretend to be liberals. They are not liberals. They are illiberal, and they are destroying liberal policy and politics in America. And so that's my ramble. That's my rant. I am so effing fed up with progressives and leftists for destroying liberalism in America and giving all this credence to the MAGA movement, which is, by the way, not traditional conservatism either. I'm not going to get into that because, yeah, they are. They're voting against what they hate, and what they hate is progressives. And if you look at the Democratic Party and there's no liberals, it's all progressives, you're going to be like, oh, okay. Bye. See you never. And I don't even blame them. I don't blame them at all. I don't blame them. I don't blame them for leaving. I don't blame them for looking for somewhere else to go, for being like, I can't vote for this anymore because it's not what I signed up for. It's kind of how I feel about what happened to libertarianism over the last few years, like what Godspeed was mentioning. It went from like a spirit to a edgelord competition, and it's just absurd. But that's the end of my rant. We're gonna get back to woke right. We're done talking about the left. We are window shopping in the right side of politics tonight. Okay, we're looking through the window with our popcorn and we're seeing what's good, what's going on, what's happening with them, because they're in a big fight right now. And now they're in an even bigger fight today because of Elon and Trump breaking up. But yeah, that's where we're at. I'm done with my rant. Here we go.
Too much influence in our country, and I think we send them too much money, etc., that gets labeled as woke, and we're told no, you can't discuss that. You even see people like Douglas Murray, who goes on Joe Rogan and says, like, these are dangerous discussions, only experts could talk about it. And that in its heart is what this labeling of woke with the woke right is really about. It's about keeping the establishment narrative and institutional control. What they don't want is someone that they consider dissident to be able to come into power. Now, what does that mean? Yeah, sure, people.
We used to be the party of unions. That's how fucking scuffed everything is right now. People talk about the Overton window. It's like, it's not just a regular window. This is like a bay window. This is like a sun porch amount of windows. The Overton shift has been, it's like a complete shift. It drives me nuts.
People that might be,
but I don't even blame them. I don't blame them at all. I totally get it.
Flamboyant racists get deemed as woke right. So you might say, I hate all Jewish people because they're Jewish. That might be something that you would say. But that gets lumped in with someone in this debate that we just saw, for example. It gets lumped in with people that are like, I'm pro-life to where I think there should be 0 abortions. Or I think the country was better off before we intervened in World War II. I think the culture was better at that point. All these sorts of questions get lumped in with woke right. And that's because the term has nothing to do with being an accurate descriptive term. It is designed to be derogatory. And the reason that Lindsay and others chose this term specifically is because they know people on the right, much like being called soy, by being called woke, this would be something that would be humiliating to them. And it also gives the left a target to be able to say, see, the term woke isn't that bad or derogatory towards us because it also applies to people on the right. And so by using woke right to describe such as the Groypers, as opposed to saying like racial identitarians or reactionaries, which is the term Andrew Wilson says, what ends up happening is you end up using a tool that becomes beneficial to the very woke group that you claim to be fighting in the first place. It's a tool that's arbitrarily applied because it'll apply to even the founding fathers and to basically anyone. And it's one that's being used for purely derogatory reasons because you're in a power battle on different factions on the right. That's in general what I think about this, and I think that Andrew did a fantastic job being able to articulate that. I really do.
Rob, would you like to go ahead and
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Do we even need to watch this part? Because I feel like Rob just explained everything pretty well. I think we could get to the actual debate that I want to watch. You know what? And Rob's here, Andrew's here, Ryan's here. We'll watch some of it. Fuck it. We'll watch some of it. We have time.
then kick it off, actually?
Yeah, sure. Why not? So, Misfit Patriot, I just had a couple questions for you. The first is, you had sort of this proprietary definition that had 4 parts. One of the parts that you seem to be focusing on that you didn't feel you met was coercion. Could you define coercion for me?
I would say that when you promote like some sort of a mob mentality, you know, like where you, like, let's say there's a lot of people on the right that that use like fake engagement and gang stalking to you know, intimidate others. It's cancel culture, and it happens all the time with these groups. You know, it's like, report this. While we were debating, I got somebody who's saying that I'm the actual one that threatened to rape Sarah Fields, and they got to report my account. And these are right wing. Every time I look at this, I see a Groyper frog attached to this account. So it's just maybe it's my own personal experience that I'm going off of, but I see a lot of the cancel culture tenets towards me.
Would it be fair to say, like, let's say you have a channel, you have a sponsor, and a bunch of Groypers contact the sponsor?
Yeah, Ryan's not the best. But he's not the worst either. Like, he's no Oliver. Oliver takes the cake. Oh, actually, all right, real quick. Who was worse, Oliver or Kylie? Kylie Brewer completely crashed out. Like, completely crashed out. Less than 60 seconds into the debate with Andrew Wilson. That was the worst I've ever seen. That was, at least Oliver sticks it out till the end. He's got to make sure he gets those clips, you know? Got to stick it out to the end, clip farm as much as he can. But Kylie just completely crashed out. Like, she had no idea what she was getting into, which is absurd. Like, how could you not look up the person you're going to debate before you debate them? Like, Jesus Christ.
Sponsor to try to, like, get them. Would you consider that sort of the coercion you're talking about?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. I couldn't help but notice previously on your X feed, you seem to endorse the Bud Light boycott. Would that be an example of you being an aggrieved victim that used
bro.
Matt Dillahunty was pretty bad. Yeah, I think Kylie was just barely worse because of the, like, you can clip chimp all day, but Andrew will clip chimp you back, so it's like not really that big of a deal. Kylie crashing out that hard looked so bad. And then she's trying to sue the podcast. Like, oh, it looks so bad. It just is such a bad look. This is why I hate progressives. Let me be clear. I don't hate them. Okay? I just think they're stupid. All right?
Well, here's the thing I did with the Bud Light thing. I said I don't do cancel culture, so I'm not going to stop drinking Bud Light, but I don't drink it anyway. And I said I don't want to go down this road of doing what the left does. However, what I said was I'm for capitalism and I'm for spending your money where you want it. So if you all want to not buy this product, I think it's a much better form
Sounds
of
coercive. Sounds a little.
It doesn't sound coercive. It sounds like he's a massive fence sitter. Like this Misfit Patriots guy just she's suing 2 podcasts. What's the other one she's suing? Who, Kylie and Oliver are dangerous? Yeah, they're dangerous. They're bad. They're bad. Or progressives and leftists. They're dangerous too. Progressives are dangerous because they're stupid. Leftists are dangerous because they actually truly purport an ideology that is like deadly and lethal to everything it touches, except for like these tiny little tribes and communities that they always cite. But like, yeah, 10 people in the forest can be communists, obviously, and there's not going to be a huge problem. It's when your nation state decides to become communists that everyone dies. But progressives, I don't know how dangerous they are. Dangerous for sure, but it's not out of like, it's out of stupidity. Oh yeah, I saw that follow-up. Okay, yeah, you're right. I do remember. Well, I remember Andrew mentioning that she mentioned it. It was off camera, so none of us got to see it, but it was mentioned that she was suing another debate, or maybe Brian was talking about it. I can't remember, but or she was suing another podcast. Yeah, that's fascinating. She can't be doing that shit.
Which is like it's boycott through force. So I didn't endorse it full-throatedly, but I said, hey, you're free to do what you want with your own money. I don't do it.
If I can, I think my fundamental, like one of the fundamental disagreements I have with you in this is, I think that Andrew's spot on when he says that there's a reason that you've taken this term, and the reason that it's bad to take that term from the perspective of the rest of us on the right is it actually gives aid and comfort to the left, because it takes away the sting of how woke was so successful at going after them, and it just applies it in a way that basically everyone on the right, including the founding fathers, based on your definition, would meet, but you're just applying it pejoratively to groups you don't like. So if I could real quick show some examples within this debate. You at one point said woke right would be people that are pro-life at conception and don't want any abortion except the life of the mother. You said that this would be an example of woke right, people that say that black people steal more, and that you wouldn't do that. Instead, you would give the reasons they do. But you understand the problem with that, right? The way we...
Oh yeah, this Misfit Patriot guy is just kind of like a fence sitter. Like, I don't actually agree with Rob's refutation, but his refutation to what this guy is saying is actually like, it's a proper refutation. None of these arguments make sense on standalone grounds, but it is like a proper refutation to what he's saying.
The way we get to understanding how the world works is by first stating truths. And if you're saying you can't state that truth until you know the reason, you can't say black people commit more murder unless you know the reason.
Yeah, she also didn't go to school to learn, apparently.
Why? That would be considered woke. You had said before you liked a video on X that you said was the death of the woke right, or murder of the woke right. Things that it was saying in there was things like, culturally, our country was better pre-World War II. And that actually Churchill didn't do everything right. So it seems to me that you have over-broadened this term so much, and that you're...
Jesus Christ, Godspeed, you're gonna get our fucking channel canceled. Oh, I'm just kidding. I love you, bud.
Basically just had some bad interactions with some groypers, and you want to complain about that, and so now you're using this term that's actually hurting or helping the very group that you made your whole brand going after, the left.
Yeah, I think that, like you said, I will agree that the term is being overbroadened. I don't think that I personally have overbroadened anything. I try to define it as accurately as possible, where those four tenets aren't the only tenets. They're just the ones that I was describing for this debate purpose. I think that when you...
So do the tenets expand when you want to add someone to the group?
No. I mean, I have the full chart here, and I could quickly go through it if you guys want.
Can I ask where you got the chart from?
Oh, Dusty's gonna stab somebody. Watch out.
Check yourself.
He's gonna do a Carmelo Anthony. He's going to stab somebody in self-defense on the panel right now. Watch out.
Trying to get rid.
Please continue.
Where did you get the chart from?
I saw it. Yeah, I saw it on X. Okay, so it's the difference between the left and right based on foundational narrative, and it would take me way too long to go through all of this. Identity politics, moral absolutism, approach to traditions and institutions, view of liberty, truth and evidence, role of state, tactics of coercion inclusion, vision of reform versus revolution. Now, I'm not going to go through this whole chart, obviously, but I'll post it. What it does is it brings the similarities in detail between the two, and then the person can decide for themselves.
Yeah, I'll stick around real quick. I'll just finish with this point, but I can stick around, no problem. But I don't want to dominate. I think that like even there, like
dominate, do it.
I think that it's clear that you're admitting that this is sort of a proprietary definition. Now you're bringing on a definition that you found on X. For all we know, that came from a liberal centrist like James Lindsay, right? No. And so the problem is, even you on your X account, you've given like 7 definitions of woke and woke right. Then we have definitions from people like James Lindsay. Now they might all have similarities, but they're different on sort of they're different on how they're being applied. I think even you can see the danger of how this is being used. Even in this debate, you started off very brashly.
Can we all just look at Ryan's face right now? He's like, why am I here? Why am I still here? Do I need to be here? Like, it's like, I feel like this conversation doesn't concern me anymore, which is kind of us right now. We're Ryan right now. We're just kind of like watching them infight through the window. It's interesting. It's funny. It's fun to just watch the other side infight through the window. I do enough infighting on the left anyway.
In your opening statement, and you made the claim that Matt Walsh,
but I don't actually consider it infighting because they're not liberals,
was like a mouthpiece for the woke right. And you said, Andrew Wilson, you are woke right adjacent. By the end of the shellacking that you got, you were like, oh, you're certainly not woke right, and we have to worry about friendly fire. And even in the 2 hours of this debate, you've already waffled on who's woke right.
How many times are you going to gaslight me in this tirade? Look,
I don't think he's gaslighting you, dude. You seem like a giant fence sitter, honestly. I really don't feel like Rob's gaslighting him that much. He really just seems like he's just on the fence. Wishy-washy waffling, if you will, as Rob mentioned.
Zero.
You gaslighted like 20 times in your closing, where you claim that you did not make, where you claim you didn't say things that you did actually say.
You guys done? All right, look. I didn't say Matt Walsh was woke right.
Are you done gaslighting?
Hold on. I didn't say Andrew Wilson was
woke.
Are you
done gaslighting?
Are you going to shut the fuck up, dude?
Are you done gaslighting?
Stop, Adam. It's enough.
I didn't say Andrew was woke right in my opening statement. I never said Matt Walsh was woke right.
Rob didn't say you said that.
Yeah, he said adjacent. He said adjacent.
I said
yeah. Rob was very. Why are you gaslighting all of us? You're claiming that Rob is saying something you didn't say. Continuous
Adam,
gaslighting
I thought
with
girls
Misfit.
called people gaslighters. Come on now, get to the point.
You want me to finish?
Stop fucking gaslighting Adam, Sarah.
Everybody gaslit.
Everybody,
I don't even trust my own senses anymore.
Everybody put the gaslighters down. Look, like I said,
I love Russian film.
So all I was trying to say is that Andrew I can make the argument that Andrew is adjacent, just like he made the argument that I'm adjacent. And I don't want to broaden the term, and the term will be weaponized. My question to you is, when you call somebody woke left, can you tell the difference between a simple Democrat and a woke leftist? And I think that everyone understands what it is, right?
What is it? You tell me. If everyone, I know what I would say.
I would say the woke faction of the left wing is the more progressive, like the Squad, right? So we have the Squad on the left, and we have the Groypers on the right. I think that they're both bad.
But that's not a definition. That's just.
I think we get it. I think it's time. For the actual debate. All right. It looks like we got Ryan back. A different Ryan. I don't know who this guy is. We have PF Jung. So if you guys don't know who PF Jung is, he's like a enlightened centrist is what he calls himself. I haven't watched like all of his content, obviously, but he seems pretty based. I like a good centrist that's an actual centrist, you know? But we'll see. We'll see. This is a long one. I'm gonna try to only interrupt every like few minutes to give my shtick, but everyone who's been here long enough knows that that's obviously not going to happen. I'm going to interrupt it all the time. So here we go.
Yet another. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Welcome, 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 one and all. To yet.
That's what he calls himself. I think it's mostly memes, the enlightened part.
Yet another episode of Wick TV, a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Gang, we've got a show for you today. Welcome, Roland Stott. You're coping hard. Nice to see you. Wayne's Brain, always a pleasure. Who we got on YouTube side? No one on YouTube side yet. I always start YouTube a little after, or at least no one's talking on that side. But welcome, Twitchers. Welcome, Kickers. And when YouTube gets here.
Now, forewarning, if this isn't interesting, we're going to watch something else.
Whoa. Not Kickers. Kick us.
Kick us. Oh, that's true. I can't use the hard R. Okay, only with the term wickers, which we are, right? That's me. So I get to use the hard
My wicker.
True. But anyway, jokes aside, we're here to talk about the woke right. Is it a thing? What is it? How do we define it? Who's part of the woke right? How did it come to be a thing? Why does everyone seem to be arguing with James Lindsay about it? Right? Lots to discuss here, lots to unpack, and we have some great guests to do it with. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves just briefly, and then we'll just kind of hand the mic to Ryan. He can start us off by
First Amender. I'm putting him in the light progressive category. As far as debating goes, I think he's bad faith. I don't think he's a good debater. Every time I've seen him debate, I've been extremely disappointed. But I'm extremely disappointed when I watch all but like 4 people debate on behalf of liberalism. So I'm not surprised when I'm disappointed by First Amender, because I'm disappointed by most people on the left side of politics when I watch them debate. It's just disappointing. The only who are the exceptions? Kyla, Destiny. I do like Soy Pill. He's pretty good. Wick is actually decent depending on the topic. He's never bad faith. There's really not many. Pisco's great. If you guys don't know who Pisco is, he's a lawyer and he debates very aggressively, and he's good. I like Pisco. First Amender, I don't think he's helpful. And I think he's a bit progressive. And it's sad because the term progressive, every human being on the planet should want to be able to call themselves progressive, because why would you want to be like if the opposite of progressive is either regressive or something like that, why would you want to be that? Like, I wish that everyone could call themselves progressive, but the term has obviously been co-opted by a specific ideology that is illiberal and unhelpful, and extremely off-putting to a lot of people in society. So it's sad, but unfortunately, I feel like First Amender falls into that category.
Defining what he thinks woke right is, and then we'll kind of get into it. PF Young, who are you? What do you do? Why should we listen to you?
What a phenomenal question. My name is PF Young. My name is Paul, actually. I have a YouTube channel called PF Young. And I am interested in the psychology of political disagreement. And I interrogate that in order to build bridges to end polarization so we can enact important reforms for our aging, decrepit institutions, and bring about a new era of positive discourse, one that isolates itself from the freaks on the right and the left. And there's no better way to destroy the freak left and freak right.
Hey, Fred, I saw your comment on my post earlier. Thanks. Glad you could join us. Welcome to the chat. Martin, wasn't Wick going to have a boxing match with Andrew Wilson? I'm pretty sure that was all memes. All memes, but I mean, I would watch that. They got about the same body type. I think Vosh is the most disgusting of all. Vosh is a fascinating character. He's a leftist. Here's the thing about Vosh. Vosh doesn't make any sense at all. He's definitely disgusting in his personal life, in my opinion. We all know why. We're not going to rehash it here. I don't need to string 900 violations of terms of service into one sentence. But we all know why. Vosh is gross. But if you take the gross personal life crap away, he just makes no sense. He's all over the place. Like, he's just, ugh. But he's definitely not a liberal. He wouldn't even tell you he's a liberal. He's illiberal.
Than by robbing them of their only valid talking points. And that is what I do as a radical centrist. And
Based. I like this guy.
Apparently woke centrist. How's that?
I mean, it's up to you. Like, fair enough, right? That's your words. Woke
fair
center.
Enough.
We'll go with it. We'll talk about if that's a thing too.
According to James Lindsay, I am the woke right, but I prefer the woke center.
We'll find out. We'll find out. Ryan, same question to you. Who are you? What do you do? Why should we listen to you?
Ryan, I'm a...
Oh, Wi-Fi. I don't know if you want to. I don't know if you want to. It's not good. It's a lot of not goodness.
A current lawyer, former teacher. I talk about law, education, philosophy on X, and probably should have something to promote, but don't. So find me on X, and one day I'll have something to promote when I do. And to answer your questions, Wick, really briefly, I think we're talking about woke right, mainly because James Lindsay is an asshole. I mean that genuinely. Like, he pegged it, got the definition right, but he can be such a troll on X that it becomes impossible to track down what he actually meant. What I'm hoping we can do tonight is actually get a clear, concise definition of what woke means that applies fairly to the left and right, doesn't require you to deep dive 100 hours of his YouTube channel to understand, and that we can kind of then, all did it well, label the degenerates and the extremists on both sides and mock them for being the children they are.
Okay. I'm going to start, I think, actually, despite what I just told you like 2 seconds ago, I'm going to start with what I consider woke, and you guys can tell me where I'm wrong, of whether you agree with me, whether you disagree with me, what you think. Because I think when we talk about, like, woke is one of those words that has been, it's in danger of becoming...
Do I like RFK? He kind of seems he's a little politician-y for me. Like, he does like the pretend normal person act, and it just comes off kind of cringe. And a lot of the stuff that he says about food and health and stuff is just, it's just scientifically wrong. Like, I don't know. I don't really like care about RFK. Like, he's a Trump cabinet appointee. I just don't care, you know? I'm much more interested in social cultural stuff than the like nuances of what the FDA is doing today or yesterday.
Like the word Nazi, meaningless almost, like used just for everything. all the time when you just disagree with someone. And I think it's important to kind of narrow it down, define it, and figure it out. And that's the only way I think we can move forward here. So here's what I think woke means. And you can, again, correct me if you think I'm wrong. I'm open to better definitions. My understanding is that wokeness is using collectivism, identitarianism, usually involving some form of grievance politics, oppressor-oppressed dynamics, in order to attack classical liberal ideals, institutions, values, things like that. That's what I would consider wokeness. Why am I wrong?
I don't think Wick is wrong. I think I agree with Wick's assessment there. That seems to be the general gist that we've gotten throughout the night as we've been investigating this woke right phenomenon. This why we're all talking about this right now still makes no sense to me. Like, what they're describing is something that we identified before the Trump stuff before the first time Trump ran for president. Like, we're talking a decade ago now. This is all stuff we identified a decade ago.
Obviously not wrong, because that's a beautiful definition that I coined last time I was on your show. So I'm a big fan of it. I think the reason.
Oh, well, now I know you were just stealing this guy's definition from a previous show, Wick. Come on. No, I'm just kidding.
It works is that it's fair and it doesn't do what James is trying to do. With all due respect to James Lindsay, what he's trying to do is get in the head of the woke and saying, what is their internal psychology? What do they believe? Which I'm not sure you can do, and you certainly can't do online with someone that you've never met. It's just not really possible accurately. What that definition does is it tracks express behavior. And it says, are you doing two things? Are you doing the grievance, the identitarian collectivist grievance? Are you attacking classical liberal values or institutions, etc., attacking classical? And I think if you have a robust definition of classical liberalism, and so I should say robust and constrained, so it's not a constantly morphing chimera itself, and then that works. And I think that if you apply that to somebody like X. Kendi, who's was the darling of the intellectual left during dark ages of the 2020, and he famously said the only remedy to past discrimination is future discrimination. What's he saying? There were grievances, for in his case, racial grievances in the past, and the way to remedy them is to attack the most foundational classical liberal value, which everyone as an individual. He would jettison that because of a grievance. That's, to me, the definition of woke.
What about you, Young? Paul, get in on this. What do you think?
My definition is much simpler. Forget the classical liberalism. A woke person is someone who uses identity politics to silence other people. I.e., Douglas Murray saying we can't criticize Israel because it might foster anti-Semitism. I.e., the far left saying we can't criticize, like black culture because racists criticize the elements of black culture. That's the relevant, simple, important fact that characterizes wokeness. Attacking liberalism, it's like, okay, religious Christianity is against classical liberalism, depending on what strain you believe in. So I don't think it has to do the attacks on classical liberalism. If you call that woke, you're way using the label too much. Woke refers to a type of person who says you can't or you shouldn't talk about this because it might hurt people and their feelings or something like that.
I don't mind that definition either. Yeah, so we kind of have a broad definition and a narrow definition. That makes things tricky when you're using the word, for sure, but I tend to kind of agree with both. I think the broad definition... Which one has more utility? Chat, which of the two definitions do you think has more utility? The broad definition of people who use identitarianism and like an oppressor, oppressee structure to attack classical liberalism and cancel people, or the narrow definition of anyone who uses that just to silence people. You have to be silencing someone that you disagree with using identitarianism. They're kind of similar. I think the only gripe is like the general attack on liberalism. Well, I am undecided. Let's see.
And that is what the real woke right does when it comes to Israel. Don't criticize Israel because of all the history of anti-Semitism, and you might sound like an anti-Semite, and all the things that Douglas Murray said to Dave Smith, particularly in the very end of their conversation when Dave Smith brought up what was this? Something Wolfowitz, Paul Wolfowitz, and Dick Pearl, and Douglas Murray was like, it's weird that you're bringing up Jewish last names when you're criticizing Israel. It's like textbook woke identity politics.
I think your definition misses the mark, and the reason it does is it focuses on a really, really specific behavior, and it leaves a lot of stuff that I think would be textbook woke on the cutting room floor.
Okay, like what?
You know who Eli Mistal is? If you don't, good for you. No one should know who he is. He's a commentator on like MS, a lawyer, and he went to a fantastic school and often articulates racial grievances. And famously, he once said the following. In March 2022, he said the United States Constitution is actually trash, pointing to things like the Fugitive Slaves Clause and the Three-Fifths Compromise. Yeah, he said, quote, we act like this thing was etched in stone by the finger of God when actually it was hotly contested and debated, scrawled out over a couple of weeks in the summer of Philadelphia in 1787 with a bunch of rich white politicians making deals with each other. Now, he's not attempting to silence anyone about anything. Sure. To me, that's very woke. You're saying the Constitution of the United States is trash because of racial grievances that you're advocating.
If I said to you, the Constitution is not sacred and it was not etched in stone, and the idea that we hold it sacred is foolish, would that make me woke? Because I believe that.
Not by itself. It'd make you wrong, but not woke.
That's fine, but not woke.
If you said
so, he just went overboard.
The Constitution is trash because it allowed white people to be replaced. Now you're woke.
The Constitution
because you're partnering a racial or identitarian grievance with an attack on classical liberal values. You have to do both.
So,
can I give you just one other example? Because I know
your mic's a little woke right now, by the way.
Yeah, this dude's mic is freaking schizophrenic. Gotta get that worked out, buddy.
You know,
I talked to a bunch of like Christian nationalists.
Yeah, hold on, wait, real quick. Ryan, for your microphone, do you want to try just going into the audio settings, voice settings, and turn off the input sensitivity? Automatically determine input sensitivity. It's like a radio button.
It just, I don't know. It glitched for a minute. They heard us talking about woke. And Zog is trying to silence us right now. Okay.
Hey, dude, tell me about it, bro.
Okay. They're here. They're in my walls. What a disaster. Indeed, what a disaster. But are we back, gang? Can you see us now? On YouTube.
I think the stream is live.
Okay. Oh no, hold on. Get a minute.
Your stream is live.
Twitch.
I can see it.
Welcome. We're back, baby. We're back. I don't know why that happens, but every once in a while it will happen. Usually once a show.
Zog.
At some point. Yes. But at what point did I cut out?
When you said you were agreeing with me on something, but I don't know what.
Nothing.
I don't think that's what I was saying. I think that you're
okay. I don't know then.
I think that you were correct in that wokeness is often used as a tool to silence people, right? To violate their First Amendment, right? Violate their free speech, more correctly put. However, I think that's not all it does. I think that it's merely one aspect of a wider range of behaviors. I think that I would best describe it, and I might part from Ryan on this, is I don't think woke is so much belief as it is a set of behaviors. It's a way of doing things, right? It's doing cancel culture, right? And engaging in kind of like this victimization game of straight white men are the most oppressed class in America now, that feminism has attacked it, and so therefore we have to deport all the minorities that they've bust in from Mexico, and we got to deport them by limiting their free speech. And if they write something critical about Israel, we ship them off and we ship them out, which we're seeing now. I think that would be
hold on. Can we? Okay, that I see it like that. I don't. Earlier, Ryan, you said, because I said basically, woke is when you use identity politics, racial, sexual, whatever, to silence people or to, beat them over the head or to rhetorically abuse them, whatever. Cancel culture, you could put it in that category, I guess. Can you give me an example of a behavior that is woke? I don't understand how that is not the primary thing we're talking about. What's an example of a behavior that you would consider woke that doesn't have that?
There are people in the Christian nationalist sphere now who will invoke feminism to say that women should no longer have the right to vote.
That's identity politics, yeah?
So what do you have? That's one of the two things I said. You have an identitarian grievance justifying an attack on classically liberal values. They're not actually saying, hey, you should...
whatever they told him to do, his mic did not get fixed at all.
Shut up, or you shouldn't be heard, or you shouldn't be able to speak. They're saying you shouldn't be able to vote. It's very different than trying to say, you shouldn't be able to talk about men's or women's issues. It's a much more foundational attack on the right to be an individual in society. Similarly, on the left-hand side, Ibram X. Kendi famously called for a constitutional amendment, which, obviously it's never going to happen, thank God, but he wanted to create a bureau in the government, which if they ever saw more than a 5% disparity between any group of people on any metric, would have the power to go into society and fix that. By whatever means would be.
That's nonsense.
Obviously crazy nonsense, obviously very woke. And the reason I'm bringing these up is that these are beyond the ambit of just, are you trying to shame someone so that they don't talk publicly?
Oh, okay. Well, all right. I see.
It's part of it, but it goes beyond that.
So you don't think that Douglas Murray is woke, right?
No, I don't think Douglas Murray is woke, right? I think he supports classical liberal values.
Okay, hold on.
I do think he has an axe to grind. Yeah.
When Douglas Murray implies that Dave Smith is fomenting anti-Semitism because he mentioned someone with the last name, a Jewish last name, how is that not functionally the exact same as, what was his name, Eli Steele? I think I do know who you're talking about, actually. His gray hair.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe
not. Yeah.
Whatever. How is it different from a woke black person saying, it's interesting that you criticized that if I'm criticizing Kamala Harris, and then they say, it's interesting that you're criticizing Kamala Harris, a black woman. I just find it interesting. It's a little weird that you're doing that. The implication being that my criticism is because she's black and not because she's incompetent. That's exactly what Douglas Murray did on the Dave Smith podcast.
I haven't seen that. You were on the Dave Smith podcast? I saw the Rogan one.
Excuse me, the Joe Rogan podcast. Yeah, sorry. Okay. With Dave Smith. The Joe Rogan podcast with Dave Smith. That is textbook woke behavior. And if your definition precludes that behavior, then I don't think it's a very good definition. Because I would say the most fundamental thing that I'm concerned about, and I think we should be concerned about when it comes to the discourse, is freedom of speech, freedom to articulate whatever ideas we have, no matter how harmful people think they are. And the principal danger of woke is a form of soft censorship, which is that you can't criticize black people because they're black, even if they happen to be incompetent individuals. You can't criticize Jews because they're Jews, because of the history of anti-Semitism. It's like, no, that's woke. And that's far more relevant, I think, than also having the element of attacking classical liberalism, because who cares? Why can't you just attack classical? People can attack classical liberalism because they don't like classical liberalism. I think neoliberalism is mid. I think liberalism is not all that great. I think democracy is the best tool that we have, but it's certainly not sacred. And democracy as we understand it, where it's like, well, I'd say the Electoral College is not very democratic. I think the Supreme Court, we have 9 people, unelected, appointed basically by random chance of whoever happens to be dead during a given president's term, that those 9 people in a 5-4 decision can determine the fate of an entire democracy. Probably not perfect. Now, does that make me woke? No, because like you said, it has to have the racial element. But then the racial element and the identity politics element, not the racial, but the identity politics element, that's the key thing when people are complaining about wokeism. Tell me
well, you said a bunch of stuff, so I'm going to try to go after it, but I'm not sure I'm going to get it in the right order.
Okay, all right. That's fine.
I think the first thing is, if you don't hold classical liberal values, and by the way, I'm saying classical liberal, not liberalism, not left-right liberals, like classic liberalism, meaning like, for example,
Judeo-Christian. Judeo-Christian is what I would
close,
call it.
Actually. Like the idea that like your rights are not given to you by the government. They are inherited because you are in the image of God. They are natural law.
No. 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 Yeah. Okay. I get what he's saying now. Okay. He's wrong, and PF is correct. Like this isn't even close. First of all, the idea that your rights are inherited naturally by blah 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 blah, blah is gobbledygook nonsense. You have no rights alone in the forest. None. Zero. None. You have nothing. No rights. The only right that you might have absent some kind of enforcement is your right to think. And there's probably a way to take that away too. Yeah, PF is right. It's definitely an identitarian attack used to silence other people because you don't like it could, I would add the caveat that it's because you cannot attack their actual opinion, and that's why you resort to this shenanigans, this wokeness. This Ryan guy sounds kind of well, first of all, he sounds obnoxious because of his freaking microphone cutting in and out. Like I can't believe he still hasn't fixed it yet. Well, I can believe it because he probably can't hear himself. But yeah, this like, oh, if you attack libertarianism, you're woke. No, shut up. No, that is not what makes you woke. It's ridiculous.
Correct.
Your rights are not given to you. You have them. The government can take them away, but they can't give it to you. That kind of old school classical liberalism is what, for example, makes me an originalist. So I'm not talking about like I think we might be using the term slightly different. So we'll start just to clear that up. And then I do think if you don't hold that sacred, why would you give a shit about free speech? That's a classical liberal value. Like the only reason you should care about free speech is because you hold classical liberal values sacred. It's a classical liberal value.
Okay. Now that you've clarified that we're talking, when you say, let's stop using classical liberal and use Judeo-Christian instead. How about?
Well, it's not this. Hold on. I have.
Yeah, Jesus, please, Wick. You have to bring some sanity back to this line of questioning. This is, holy God, this is getting off the rails.
Object to that because Judeo.
Oh, he objects. You fucking anti-Christian bastard.
Well, Judeo-Christianity contains a lot more than is contained in classical liberalism. Classical liberalism might be based off of and inspired by many Judeo-Christian values, but it also incorporates other things. And also Judeo-Christian values there's a host more to that than just classical liberalism. Let me read my $10 super chat while you process. And Caleb, thank you for the $10, Caleb, says woke for needs to also encompass a strong anti-institutional and selective acceptance of expertise in science, pro-IQ science but anti-epidemiology, pro-gender science until data is inconvenient, etc. Thank you for the $10. Not sure I agree, but I appreciate the money. But yeah, so I think Judeo-Christian is a way of sneaking in a lot of concepts by agreeing us. Like I just don't find that helpful.
Okay, fine. It comes down to a. Go ahead.
At the risk of opening the Jordan Peterson wormhole, one of my favorite Petersonisms was that essentially what I'm talking about when I say classical liberal values is the flowering of the Judeo-Christian tradition.
Yes, I agree.
When the founders came, they were a collection of Christians, and like me, I'm a deist, so Christians and deists, and what they did is they took this value that the divine is the individual, and everyone must be treated as an individual.
Yes.
And then what they did is they said, what if we have the greatest political experiment of all time, and we take the greatest minds of our generation, and we sit and we don't rush it because we have time, we think for months, and we come up with a system of government that is designed in every way to honor that principle, that there are individuals with rights worth honoring. There is
All right, we agree on this. We agree. It's
not exactly Judeo-Christian because it's not the Bible, but that's what I mean when I say.
I agree. Okay, now we're talking about. Okay, I understand what we're talking. I'm talking about the same thing.
I think in that vein,
that's all fine and dandy and probably true. This has nothing to do with being woke at all, because the idea that you have inherent rights is utter nonsense. So like, oh my God, this has nothing to do with being woke. I hope PF's about to rip him apart over this, because this is absurd to attach wokeness to attacking classical liberalism. Like, this is crazy.
You have to have a little wiggle room. Like, speech is tricky, right? Like, I think we both agree if someone was trying to use the power of the government to silence people because they criticize Israel, that's a problem.
Is woke. That's woke.
So Trump is woke.
Do you agree that that's woke, Ryan? Because that's
that would strike me as woke. If you're using a racial or collectivist grievance to stifle free speech on behalf of Israel, that would strike me as woke.
Okay, well, there we go.
I agree with that sentence. I don't know where it's going, but I agree with that sentence.
Yeah, we agree. There's nothing more to argue about. Congratulations.
In a conversation, though, there's a little bit of a difference, right? When you're not using governmental power. Like, I think you can have a disagreement and even say that you think someone's saying something inappropriate without stifling the value of free speech. I don't know exactly what Murray said, so I'm at a bit of a disadvantage.
Well, I posted a 3-minute clip that went viral, and James Lindsay himself quote tweeted me and called me woke right for posting it. So Wick, if you want to, I'd be happy to pull up the clip if it's
share the screen. Share the screen.
That would actually be very helpful.
Yeah,
this would be very
just share
relevant.
The screen and we'll watch it in here. We'll all watch it together.
Well, hold on. While I find it, maybe bring up another point or something I can contend with because I don't have it bookmarked.
He's messing with that. Like, so
I think just the thing that's important about getting this right now is that the left got cannibalized by wokeism. Like it just became rampant to the point where it almost became the dominant school of thought within the party and definitely cost them the election.
Yeah, the Democratic Party has been completely overrun with progressives. I understand. I wouldn't concede that. It's a bummer. I don't like it, but it's true.
On the right, this is new. It's emerging. And I think that there's different reasons why people use the term. A lot of people use woke right because they want to hack MAGA or they want to score political points. But there are people, and I do think, for all my disagreements with them, James Lindsay is one of them, they're trying to call this out early because they don't want what happened to the left to happen to the right.
Yes, but they are but this is okay. I think we should watch the Douglas Murray clip.
Sure.
I send it to you, Wick.
Share your screen. Oh, you guys.
You want me to do it?
Either one. You can. You should.
I don't want to. I have a lot of deeply unsavory illegal shit on my computer that I want to show up.
Okay, DM it to me.
Don't have a Vouch moment.
I sent it to you. Yeah.
Okay, let me bring it up.
Vouch call out.
I'm gonna pause it right here. It's a 3-minute clip. We'll watch it.
3-minute clip. Play it at 1.25 or whatever. Or yeah, whatever speed. Yeah.
Okay, clicky, so we can all see CE.
Yep.
Here, I'll just so it's front and center. Well,
And just for context, real quick, just for context, Dave Smith is talking about Paul Wolfowitz. Paul Wolfowitz was the secretary or the deputy defense secretary under Donald Rumsfeld. Okay, and that's basically all. And Paul Wolfowitz is Jewish. That's basically what you need to know for this clip.
Okay, let's watch the clip and see what happens.
To attribute American foreign policy in the last 40 years to Paul Wolfowitz and Dick Pearl is, knowingly or otherwise, to encourage a conspiracy that has very obvious legs. And I just urge you not to do it.
Okay, let me respond to this a little bit. First of all, it is not at all saying that these guys therefore just control everything. I'm just pointing out what a 4-star general claimed, where plans originated, and that they ended up being implemented. That doesn't mean that they were the absolute ruler or arbiter of what was going to happen. But again, I got to say, for you to say that I can't bring up the neoconservative...
I never said you couldn't.
Okay, let me just... Right, but the implication is that I'm unwittingly giving fertile ground to some, like, Jew-hating conspiracy if I bring up a guy who's got a Jewish last name who was a consequential person in our government. This is, like, identical to the arguments of the woke left. That would just be like, oh, if you even say something... You know, if you bring up the crime rate in Chicago, you're basically a bigot because other people could take this and run with it.
Come on.
No, you come on. What's the argument?
Look, if you said to me...
I said a 4-star general said something, and there's no... What's the response?
If you said to me, or somebody said to me, don't you think that some people are running the global financial system? And I said, possibly. And I said, who do you think it is? And they said, the Rothschilds. I think I'd be right in saying there was something a bit off about the character of the person doing that, because it seemed like they were playing to some kind of lazy old trope. And I think similarly that if you give the implication that a cabal of people, particularly, and you should be really careful about this because of the people who will come up underneath you, if you give the implication that these cabals exist and you decide to elevate the Jews or people with Jewish names in it and then play down the non-Jews, I can tell you, you will be opening up a world of madness.
But am I really playing down the non-Jews? I mean, go look at the stuff that I've said about Obama, about George W. Bush.
You said Middle East policy is Dick Pearl and Paul Wolfowitz, and I said,
no. I mean, this is why I'm saying this is a woke leftist tactic. I literally just mentioned that a 4-star general said this. I'm quoting him, and now you're telling me that this is the same thing as promoting.
Me that when you quote somebody, it's a totally arbitrary thing that you just pluck out of the air.
I'm not arguing that it's arbitrary. I'm saying I'm using the quote for a reason. I was connecting it to an argument.
And I'm saying to you,
I'm giving fertile ground to Jew haters to mention that.
I think that when you decide to elevate what is a conspiracy of people who are overthrowing the governments of various countries, some of which haven't been overthrown and others of which have, but by the way, were not overthrown by American dominance, certainly not in Syria. And then you say that the people who are doing it are these people with Jewish names. I think you should be more judicious than that, because you probably know what bubbles up underneath you online by now. To attribute...
Never have I seen more wokeness jam-packed into a 3-minute clip. Oh, it's kind of weird if you bring up a guy with a genuine discourse on an important subject, one needed to be talked about, and Douglas Murray with his woke identity politics comes in and says, it's just weird that you're doing that. I'm questioning your character. This is the kind of soft cancel culture bullying tactics that is a textbook tactic of the woke left. There's no criticism of classical liberalism in there. The important thing that makes someone's woke is that nonsense from Dougie.
That's a very interesting clip to have selected. I guess the question I would have is if we're going to label that woke.
Yeah.
That was cringe. That was cringe and woke. Yeah, that was cringy. That was wokey. I'll allow it.
How does one ever push back against, like, if you think that somebody is saying something inappropriate or doing something that you either find offensive or you think is, just not the sort of thing you should be saying? Like, how would you ever go about doing that?
Because, depends. Because I'm a classical liberal, as you pointed out, I believe that when it comes to the free exchange of ideas on controversial topics, almost none of it is relevant. I don't give a fuck if people are offended on the most controversial topic that we're talking about. Jordan Peterson 101, you can't think without risk being offensive, or you can't think without risk being offensive. So any kind of, you shouldn't say that or whatever. Now, if someone is very clearly trafficking in lies, and you call them out for that. So if someone says something that they know to be untrue, that is where you say, okay, now this is bullshit, and now we're going to exclude you from the conversation because you're knowingly poisoning the discourse with false information. But until someone is willing to say that you're a liar, calling someone an anti-Semite or a racist or a communist or whatever fucking label you want to call someone, is not a valid, is just an attempt to silence discussion on an important issue.
I think that steps a bit too far for me because free speech cuts both ways, right? Like if you respect the value of free speech, you have to respect the value that people can say things you disagree with, they can say things that you find offensive. And that applies to you and it applies to them. But that would also apply to people saying, I find that offensive. Right? Like it applies to everything. So it only becomes...
And I would call those people woke. And I would say, you're free to say that. And I'm not trying to censor you. And me calling Douglas Murray woke right is not my attempt to censor him.
So anyone criticizing Dave Smith in that regard is being woke? By saying, hey, I think Dave Smith brings up Jews an awful lot. And I've noticed that. He's bringing up Jews an awful lot.
That's textbook
woke to notice that?
Of course. That's the it's like saying, you know,
that's wild. But go on.
Well,
explain. Let him explain.
Hold on. Hold on. No, wait. Hold on. I'm going to address what Wick said. Because what is the implication that when you say that, Wick? I'm noticing that Dave Smith, a guy who talks about Israel, I wonder why Jews would come up in discussions about the Jewish state. So the implication that you're putting, even in the tone that you just said it, was the wokest thing you could possibly do, which is, I wonder why Dave Smith constantly talks about Jews. Maybe he's a racist. That's the soft woke bullying cancel culture bullshit.
So we can't ever ask if someone's a racist? Can we never interrogate whether or not someone is a racist?
No, Kathy Newman, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying calling someone a racist for bringing up something that is self-evidently not racist, like the fact that Deputy Defense Secretary Paul Wolfowitz has a Jewish last name, which wasn't even the fact, that he just named that person about something far more consequential. That is woke. To say, well, are some people racist?
Okay. Well, let me. I think that's very convenient cover, I think, for never being able to call out someone for anti-Semitism ever. Because if you even... Because again, that was 3 minutes of a longer conversation, if I may finish.
That's what the woke left would say about.
No.
Go ahead.
The woke left would say anti-Semitism's good, actually, and we should do it more. But that's another conversation.
But I'm talking in the context of like black.
It's true. That's true. They're crazy. C. Hassan. This is interesting. This is very interesting. So on the one hand, I have... All right, we're going to do 3 hands. On the one hand, I don't know why we're all talking about this right now. Like, who cares? On the other hand, we have... So I guess I would wonder if PF would... Like, is there something Dave Smith could say where questioning him on that wouldn't be woke? So, like, Dave Smith says something involving a Jewish person's last name because he's talking about Israel, Palestine. So, obviously, people with Jewish last names are going to come up. Obviously. So, that on its own isn't necessarily grounds for the interrogation. Ooh. Let's see what let's let Wick take this one away for another minute. I want to see what Wick says about this.
People, like if you criticize black culture, right, whatever that means, you know, it's like, hey, it's not good that, for example, it seems to be a norm that, you know, if you speak proper English as a black person, that makes you somehow less black. Like, that's bad. That's stupid. That's fucking lame.
It is.
Oh, but Paul's white. And Paul, you know, it's odd that a white person is criticizing a black cultural phenomenon. I wonder
if you
why
did
he
it
does.
every
Implication
day,
being I'm racist.
If every day you came on my show and every day you wanted to talk about, it's weird that 15% of the population engages in 50% of the crime, and every day,
fine,
and every single day, single day, you brought up those statistics you wanted to talk about. I'm giving you an example, right?
Yep.
If that's, I don't think it would be woke or even inappropriate to wonder out loud, hey, that's really weird that you keep bringing up black people.
I agree. 100% agreed.
And in the context,
this has nothing.
Okay. Okay. If this hypothetical person that Wick is talking about, if this hypothetical person came onto Wick's show every day and they were discussing crime statistics every day, then it might make sense that that person is saying that every day. I mean, that whole situation would just be weird. Ooh, this is interesting. We should stop using woke. We should just call stupid people stupid and smart people smart, and we should get real pointed with it. Okay?
To do with Israel.
In the context of that conversation, though, with Murray and Smith, the reason that they got in that conversation, as I recall, was that Murray was concerned that Rogan was having on a series of people that were saying things like, Churchill's the villain in World War II, and we don't need to litigate that, but like the concern was that he was, rightly or wrongly, and I had not watched all these episodes, so I'm not taking on that he was platforming one side of the anti-Semitism, World War II revisionism, not the other side. And
okay, that's a valid critique.
Critiquing that behavior, seems very fair game.
100%.
Okay, so you don't take issue with Douglas Murray's position on the whole.
No, I agree with Douglas Murray on that. That Joe Rogan should have Ben Shapiro on ASAP. He should host a debate with Dave Smith. He should bring all of the pro-Israel people on his podcast, and there should be more discourse between them. And Daryl Cooper, I think, is. I've listened to Daryl Cooper's podcast, and people who have listened to Fear and Loathing in Jerusalem. The whole that he's an anti-Semite is so laughably beyond ridiculous that only someone who is ignorant of the person would say that. But I do agree he's a coward for not being willing to debate a real historian about his claim that Churchill was the primary villain in World War II. I think, okay, that's evidence that Daryl Cooper is cowardly and intellectually insecure. If he's willing to go on Tucker Carlson and say that, but not have a debate with someone who's informed on it. That's not a woke critique. That's a very valid critique of you don't know what you're talking about, as evidenced by your fear of engaging in a real discourse. That's completely different from saying, Daryl Cooper, he's an anti-Semite, so therefore he shouldn't be listened to. It's like whether or not someone is racist that is not making any claim about the validity of their truth claims. Totally irrelevant. They're terrible. There are truths that are racist. It's like
no, I agree. I don't disagree with this.
You can be a terrible person and be right.
Correct, right. And the woke issue is implying that when you are having a genuine, non-racist discussion about like the deputy defense secretary who happens to be named Paul Wolfowitz, and the context was the entire conversation about the conflict in the Middle East with Israel, which is probably the most like controversial topic of the last 2 years. So the claim that Wick, you're like, well, but if someone brings it up all the time, it's like, well, children are constantly being killed every day. I think it's fair to point this out and bring up the role that like Israel has in influencing our politics.
But the problem I have.
And let me be clear.
Hold on,
be very clear.
Be clear real quick that I got a couple super chats and then I'll let then I have a response and Ryan can respond. And apparently you're either Artie Lang or Homelander, one of the two. But anyway.
Artie Lang, is that James Vanderbeek?
I'm not sure. I don't know who that is.
No. Sorry, continue.
No, I wanted you to finish your point, and then I was going to read super.
That was my point. My point was I noticed at the end of that sentence I was getting worked up.
Okay, that's fine.
And I would like to acknowledge that.
Well,
and
we're all.
apologize for
This is fun. It's
emotional
a fun
instability.
conversation. We can.
I'm
have
tired of seeing
passion.
dead children on
Okay.
my timeline all the time. That's what bothers me.
Great. I mean, no one likes dead children.
Follow Wick.
$20 from Crash Out or Cash Out to say, I dislike the debate. The origin of being woke stems from the black communities being aware/woke to understand the now based on the past. Sociology and psychology effects adopted by the mainstream pop, especially feminism and LGBTQ. Well, thank you for the $20 and then $5 more from the same person. Critical race theory was considered woke, but was shot down because it makes certain groups feel guilty because ultimately it made people aware. #woke. Thank you for the $5. I just think we have a different definition of woke. I think that while you might be right
This sounds woke as hell.
I think he might be right on the origin of the word itself, right? But words shift in meaning, and I think that as it was adopted by the more mainstream culture, it did shift in meaning, and I think that's where we are now. And then Caleb, a member for 1 month. Thank you for being a Tier 1 member for 1 month. Ask PF Young if Churchill was the main villain.
If Churchill was the main villain?
Yeah, was Churchill?
No, I tend to think the guy that committed industrial mass extermination was probably the main villain. If I had to put my money on it, Stalin up there too is pretty bad.
It's funny. I was actually on Tim Pool.
Yeah.
I was actually on Tim Pool, and I asked him a similar question. He struggled to answer that question. He was like, well, I don't really know.
To the degree I get. The point, again, that Daryl Cooper was making is that Winston Churchill did not act in a way that could have maybe restrained the war, which I don't necessarily know is true or not. The fact that Daryl Cooper is too much of a coward to debate it with a real historian makes me think it's not true. But fine, let him say it, and then let me and other people come on and say he's a coward for not willing to debate someone on it. That's a much more effective way to address false information than implying that they're anti-Semitic or something like that.
Yeah, but again, like the problem I have mainly with your contention of this clip specifically is that it's in the context of a larger conversation and the larger body of work that Dave Smith has engaged in, and I think it's not necessarily woke or even inappropriate to ask that question. To ask, is Dave Smith engaged in kind of this dog whistling, soft anti-Semitism? Now the answer might be no, right? But I don't think it's a crime or even inappropriate to ask, especially if you're asking him directly, right?
The funny thing about it is that the critique that Murray had would also be of Smith and of I forgot his name now, the historian you mentioned,
Daryl Cooper.
Daryl Cooper. It is another like classic woke playbook, which is say things publicly, but you never debate. You say you want to be treated like a public intellectual, but you will not expose yourself to the scrutiny and the rigor that is expected of a public intellectual, so your ideas are never tested. And that was really Murray's issue that he was raising
100%.
in that debate. And so I think you have to have a little bit of a zone of discretion. You know, like I see what you're saying. I think there are certainly instances of somebody saying, you can't speak to this because you're not a black man, or you can't speak to this because you're insufficiently oppressed, where I would agree with you. I think that you've got to have some zone where people can talk about the idea that I am a little concerned that you keep bringing up the Jews. I am a little concerned that you keep saying that women are inferior. Like maybe we should talk about that.
Of course. There's absolutely space for that. I would not say that by itself is woke. Everything needs to be put into context. And I'm saying the reason I selected that clip, and the reason it went viral, it wouldn't have gone viral if there wasn't some element of truth to it, is that in that instance, it was very, very. Do you disagree that what Douglas Murray was doing? He wasn't asking. He didn't say, Dave, you talk about Israel a lot. You talk about Israel a lot, and I just want to know, like, do you believe in Jewish conspiracies? Do you what do you think of the whatever? You could ask him all those kinds of things in the spirit of genuinely getting information out of him. That's not what Douglas Murray was doing. Douglas Murray was implying that because Dave Smith said the last name of a Jew, Wolfowitz, it somehow might be trafficking in anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. That's woke. It's an assertion.
I kind of agree with. I think I agree with PF here. there was a way that Douglas could have said that and it not have kind of been a woke scold. It was because they're probably, and look, I say probably, I mean more like definitely. And I feel like this applies to Tim Pool with the Russia-Ukraine thing. It's like they're like obsessed. Like Dave Smith is like obsessed with this topic. He's obsessed with it. Like possessed by it. The same way Tim is with the Ukraine Russia stuff. Like they are ideologically possessed by this. But it's not because he used a person's last name that was a Jewish last name. It is the broader context. And the way Douglas said that didn't get to that point. It didn't address that aspect of the point properly. Which is a bummer, but yeah, it's oof. It's a very gray area. It's a very gray area because you do have to, there has to be some amount of like he's bringing this up a lot. Like a lot. And it all seems to circle back to the same concept. And like, that's something that you, like, any reasonable person might want to address. But the way Douglas did it was kind of woke. Yeah, I think I agree with PF here.
Two of a conversation?
Huh?
Wasn't that like hour 2 of a conversation?
That was in the last, whatever, probably like 20 minutes of the, I don't know how long it was, 2 hours, something like that.
Yeah, so I mean, that's what I mean. Like, I think by the time you get to that point in the conversation, I think
Did you watch the debate?
I watched parts of it. I wouldn't say I watched the whole thing.
I did. I did.
Okay.
I hasn't like I didn't do it yesterday, right? So and it was a long conversation, so fair enough. But
from my recollection, by the time they got into like the hour mark, there was quite a lot of conversation about whether or not people were.
Sorry.
So anyway, the Jews are doing the. Oh, sorry.
Oh shit, Wick's back.
No. I don't know what's wrong with my internet. I need to get that fixed. I apologize. It will be back up for YouTube and Twitch momentarily. I see the red light on. It's going to go to green any second now. I am connected to the internet again. I'm glad it's very brief, but it's still annoying.
True. We do have to pause the discussion because the stream goes out as well.
Yes, I am sorry about that. My apologies. My bad. They got me again. Hamas did it this time. Last time it was Zog. This time it was Hamas.
That's fair.
Okay.
Let's be radical centrist here, right? Both sides. Both sides. Yeah, that's interesting.
Isn't it weird how I bring up terrorists?
Yeah. Anyway, what were you were saying? What?
See, yeah. Again, that clip being at the end, I think. Look, you can disagree with Douglas Murray's assessment, but I don't think it is out of the blue, nor is it woke, nor is it.
Of course, it's not out of the blue.
I don't think it's inappropriate for Douglas Murray to imply that, hey, Dave Smith, I think you're maybe a little bit anti-Semitic here, based on the.
Okay, that's the wokest thing I've heard you say, Wick. That's ridiculous.
Are you being paid to defend Dave Smith here? What's
are you being paid by the woke right to say that that Dave Smith is an anti-Semite, noted Jew?
You have
Dave
a
Smith,
secret master, some secret society that.
I just think I mean, to be clear, there's a lot of things that Douglas Murray said on that podcast that I agree with, even on the topic of Israel. Like, for example, that when you see all of the devastation in the images of Gaza, you have to remember that Hamas puts ammunition and shit in a lot of those houses. And so when a single missile strike comes down, it hits one house and then it sets off a daisy chain. And that is in part why the destruction is as significant as it is. Hamas is as...
Hey, Hannah, we're rotting our brains with the most absurd topic that I don't understand why the whole right is talking about right now. Is it relevant? Anyway, hello, Hannah.
As bad as Israel. There's no fucking disputing that. I would not ever say that. Okay, or not ever say that Hamas is justified. I'm not far left. That's the woke left bullshit, right? You cannot criticize the IDF if you're not also willing to criticize Hamas. You lose all your moral high ground there. So, you know, if I haven't properly given that perception,
okay, yeah, no, you're
that's
fine.
my
You
apologies.
don't. We're not. This isn't a struggle session. You don't have to. I condemn Hamas, right? We get it.
That's
yeah. We're not
fair.
struggle.
He has to.
That's woke.
He has
Yeah,
to.
that's woke. Yeah,
but
requiring people to condemn Hamas is woke.
Look, I want to take it back just a little bit from this specific moment and go to the more conceptual. Candace Owens, do you consider her woke, right?
Oh, okay. Honestly, I have not kept up with Candace Owens recently, so I don't even really know what she's been up to. Does she use identitarianism to try to silence people? I would probably say no. Not that I like, I honestly, I don't like her at all, but I don't know if I would call her woke by the definitions they've been purporting. This whole topic is just so weird. Like, it's very strange.
I consider no, I generally don't use the term woke right unless it's talking about the people who I described fit my definition, using race politics or identity politics to silence others through hard or soft means. And does Candace Owens do? Candace Owens is a grifter. Candace Owens is a bit of a loon. Is she an anti-Semite?
Maybe.
You know, even if she was, I think calling her that just reduces your ability to leverage more useful criticism down the line. So it's the same reason that even if I thought someone was genuinely racist, or even if I thought someone was engaging in hate speech, I wouldn't call it hate speech. Just on
what about a genuine separatist? Like, I mean, like someone who's actually calling for races should live separately. Well, that woke?
That's pretty woke.
Okay, but that's not a speech. It's not. Let's say they're very polite and cordial in conversation. They'll let you say whatever they want. They just think that there should be a white nation and a black nation.
Again, look, this is there's sort of a the nature of this conversation is somewhat fraught because essentially we're debating something that is not entirely, but fundamentally comes down to vibes, which is
why I don't get it. Why are we debating this right now? Why is this happening right now? Why is this such a big deal right now? Like, this is without the woke attachment to the right part of the term. Why we identified all of these things a decade ago. At least a decade ago. I mean, we've been identified. I mean, this very specific phenomenon got really big a decade ago. Why are we so... Why now? Why for the last few months? I don't understand. So like, calling the left woke in a pejorative way has been going on for at least 10 years. And the phenomenon on the right that we're just now calling woke has also been going on for the same amount of time. Why are we all of the sudden so concerned with this now? I don't get it. Yeah, I don't get it. Like, is this really a useful term at this point? For anyone? For any side? Is this like a useful thing? I don't know. This is weird. We're not going to watch too much more of this because it's very circular, and as PF just pointed out, it's kind of pointless because it's vibes. It's literally vibes. Like,
what is the best way to use the word woke? And there is no that's a question that cannot be answered through logical debate. It's only through it's like if two football teams are going to play each other and we're debating on who's going to win. It's like we can debate all day long, but ultimately we don't know until the football teams play out. And so I'm making the case that the term the woke or the woke right should be reserved for people who are censoring people and silencing free speech in the name of identity politics, which is what the principal problem was on the left. If a black nationalist said, I want to separate from the United States, as equals, which is what Malcolm X advocated, for example, would I call that woke? I would say I'm sure that accompanies a lot of woke beliefs, but that's actually not the primary issue. The primary issue would be if people like that said, you can't criticizing me as racist. If someone said, I want to separate, and if you criticize me for my racial separation beliefs, then you're racist. Then that would be woke in the way that is more consequential than just having an idea that I disagree with.
Here's my problem with the way that you're using the term. And I agree with you, by the way. This is a brand new term. We've kind of invented it recently and evolved it recently. So it's not like there's some objective metric where we can decide the definition needs to be X. Like, I don't think that's going to
correct. Yeah. Which is why it's not a debate. It's a genuine discussion. Even though I'm in.
No, we're debating. It's a debate. Don't worry.
Yeah, but it's not one of those debates.
When I use the word woke, what I'm really using it for, to be totally cards on the table, is I'm identifying the sector I think should be excised from a political party so that I can join it. If the woke were kicked off the Democratic side, I'd still be a Democrat probably.
Yep.
If the woke right were kicked off the right, I'd be a lot more comfortable in conservative circles than I currently am. And the problem I have with your definition is it excises Douglas Murray, but keeps the KKK member. The KKK member is delighted to talk about anything, but he's not censoring anybody. He'd love to have a very candid conversation with you, but Douglas Murray is the problem, and I just don't see it. I think the people I'm trying to excise from the right are the fucking fringe lunatics who are sneaking in total assaults on fundamental Judeo-Christian or classical liberal, whatever term we want to use, values. If they are allowed to fester on the right, will do to the right what they did to the left, which is destroy it from within.
Okay, let me respond to this very directly. My ability to criticize the freaks on the right. The freaks on the right come in many different flavors, right?
What's your favorite?
Just because I call Rocky Road, just because I call I couldn't think of Vanilla Ice. I don't know. They're more white. Yeah. Just because I label. Do you play video games at all? League of Legends.
I never fell down that particular cesspit, but yes.
But you understand the concept, okay.
We're old enemies.
League of Legends. There's five different enemies on the enemy team. You play MOBAs. Okay. There's 5 different enemies. Each of them are different. I have one word, woke, to describe the Douglas Murrays, the people who say I can't criticize Israel or criticizing Israel or Judaism or any of that makes you an anti-Semite or it should be implied that you're an anti-Semite. That's one type of person on the freak right. The woke right is one subset of the freak right. Then there are the red pill manosphere people who just hate women. I wouldn't call them woke. I would call them just fucking dweebs and losers, among other things. Then there are the what's another faction on the right? The hardcore Christian fundamentalists. Are they woke? No, because woke is reserved for people who.
Buggy Buchanan. They didn't say that at all. They're talking about the parts of the right that are bad. They're not saying everyone is bad. I don't know where you got that from. He's talking about the 5 different classifications of the pieces of the right that he doesn't like. So Not everyone on the right.
Who are censoring free speech. The Christian nationalists who, for example, want to use blasphemy laws to censor free speech, maybe I could call them woke, but they're not really using race and identity politics. They're using religion to censor free speech.
Well, they're using their identity as religion to censor.
Yeah, okay, but then it's like, well, again, it's like, where are we going to draw the line about which identity?
Well,
like Christianity versus race versus
if
whatever.
If I may, and I'm sorry for cutting you off, but I think that
Yeah, come on, Wick. He was in the middle of he was on finger 3. There were only 2 left.
You should be.
This
is making a great point.
Helpful to the conversation might be why I define it more broadly than you. The use case that I see, or not the use case, but the usefulness of using it as a more broad term, because I think that my definition, collectivism and identitarianism, that often, but not always, use grievance politics in order to attack classical liberal values, it showcases a much more wider umbrella that we can point to the ways of thinking that influence the behavior that we see on the ground. So that censoring that you were talking about is the symptom, right? But I'm identifying the root of the problem.
Okay. Right to that point, I don't think that that's necessarily a problem. You can collectivism in and of itself is not bad. We're social creatures. Everyone agrees.
They said earning a degree would keep me in demand, but some degrees are more valuable than others.
Way in
Take
the middle of the video.
Yeesh. Like, we all agree in some level of collectivism.
YouTube is wild. The last Wick TV thing we watched, there were like 3 ads in the first 10 minutes and then nothing again for the rest of the debate. This one, we're 51 minutes in and now we just randomly get an ad. What is up with YouTube? I don't get it.
Right? We all agree to abide by laws, to sacrifice some of our individual liberty to maintain the social order. That's what taxes are in a very, basic sense. Do we disagree to that?
I think we agree. I think that there is an interplay between ideas like state, patriotism, support your family, support your community.
Yep, collective identity.
That's collective loyalty. And then, particularly in the American tradition, the paramount, you could even call it like holy value that we place on individial.
Which I think is wrong. I think our emphasis on the individual is a fatal mistake that is causing the problems that we have.
I disagree.
You might be woke.
But I've said I'm woke center. Jordan Peterson said, what's the classic Jordan Peterson line? Your rights are my responsibilities. There's no such thing as rights without the equivalent responsibilities. This is a point made by Viktor Frankl, who was a Austrian.
Yes. Friendly reminder, rights don't exist. They are entitlements granted to you by a enforcement arm.
Jewish psychiatrist who survived the concentration camps. Right? He said the Statue of Liberty should be supplemented by the Statue of Responsibility because you cannot have one without the other. And individual liberty is dependent upon collective responsibility. You don't have any rights unless you live in a system that protects those rights. And you have a collective responsibility to that system
to ensure
some level of individualism.
Does the government give you those rights?
The government can't give you rights, Wick, because rights don't exist. The government can entitle you to certain freedoms by enforcing them or protecting your ability to engage in those entitlements. That would be the most accurate way to describe that.
The government protects them, or should. A functioning government does.
Yes.
I don't know what that means, give them to me.
You're talking about what you were saying is that your rights don't exist without a system that protects those rights. And I don't think that's necessarily true. While a system might violate or individual.
Oh, Wick, what are you doing? Why? Oh. Why? This is a constant problem. Where for some reason I feel insane sometimes because nobody else on the left side of center, anywhere on the left side of center, understands what rights actually are. Like they're not a thing. Like you can't point to them. Someone can't give them to you. You're not endowed with them at birth. Like, they can only exist in the terms that PF just laid out. Wick is smarter than this. He should know this. He should know this.
Individuals or groups might violate your rights. I think your rights still exist, even if the First Amendment.
Where, Wick? Where do they exist?
Amendment didn't exist, for example, in America, I think free speech would still be a thing, and it would still be worth fighting for. It would still be a value.
I agree.
And a right.
But it would functionally not exist in a totalitarian free speech. If we lived in a censorship society, free speech would functionally not exist as a right. I would not have a right to come on and criticize the president or something.
It would be limited, but it still exists to some extent.
Okay, fine. My point is,
don't find whatever. Come on. I guess he doesn't know the defeat or refutation for this. But
my issue with your definition, Wick, is that because you're going after what you believe is the symptom, I think your definition is too expansive.
The cause.
Excuse me, the opposite. Yes, you're going after the cause. And I'm saying there's actually a lot of value that you are laying at the cause, and it's better to focus on the downstream symptom that is the problem. Call that, woke right or whatever, because then we can look at the cause and say, well, what are the valid points in this original cause that we could actually make use of?
Well,
we call that the woke right, we excise everyone.
You took a slice of my cause, and then you focused on that collectivism specifically, but it's not just collectivism. I don't disagree. Collectivism in and of and by itself is neutral, in my opinion. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is.
So is individualism.
Identitarianism, same thing, though I tend to eschew identitarianism for other reasons. It's
no, not the same. Identitarianism is categorically worse than the neutral collectivism and the individualism. Those are neutral. Identitarianism is bad.
Only when it's combined, right, with this attack on what I consider classical liberalism. And let me define that for you pretty simply for the sake of this discussion. Free speech, free trade, free elections. I think that's pretty standard.
That is not. We don't have any of those things. We've never had any of those things.
Fucking hate classical liberalism if that's how we define it. I like the flowering of the Judeo-Christian. Free trade is.
I don't like the flowering of the Judeo-Christian blubberlygook either, but.
The sacred religious thing? God, well, I'm not dying for free trade. I'll tell you that.
I mean, you'll die.
I'll die for free speech.
Well, no, hold on. The problem is like if goods don't cross borders, troops eventually will. So you're more likely to die without free trade than you are with.
I would respectfully disagree with that.
I wouldn't include free trade. I'm a free trade guy, but I wouldn't include free trade in.
I'm not a free trade
definition. Guy. And the reason I wouldn't is because you talk about like root causes. To me, what happened, and there's a lot of reasons why things got so crazy in 2020, but one of the reasons is that classical liberals have been absolute fucking pussies for a very long time. And it makes sense that they are, because most classical liberal values are about not doing things, not rushing to judgment, not censoring speech, not having the government have X power and Y power.
Not restricting trade. Yes, I agree.
So there's a sense in which oftentimes classical liberals approach conversations and they're not being forceful. And what I think we need to start doing, and I think your focus takes us away from in a way that I don't find helpful, is identifying the difference between people who are adding to the American tradition. They're saying, okay, we have patriotism, we have classical liberalism, let's keep building, let's add to this. And people who are trying to knock the fucking tower down. And it's not a subtle distinction, because if you talk, like, again, I'll bring up the Christian nationalist example. If you talk to a Christian nationalist and they say something like, I think Christian morality is better, I think Christian morality is going to save the country, I'm going to go out and I'm going to organize people and we're going to get a lot of Christians in office. I have no problem with that. That's well within the bounds of classic liberalism. If they say, And that's why I support laws that create a religious test that you can only hold office if you're a Protestant. Now we have a problem because they're invading classical liberalism, and that I need classical liberals to step up to the plate and combat that because it's wrong. And I don't know that focusing only on silencing others gets there. I'm not saying they should lose their right to free speech. I'm saying they should be called a moron to their face. And
that's fine. Yeah. Like I said, the analogy again. I feel like this whole discussion can be resolved if we just acknowledge the reality of there are 5 different types of enemies on the right. One of them is woke. One of them is freak misogynist. One of them is religious fundamentalist, evolution deniers. Whatever the other ones are.
Oh, what? Come on. What are the other ones?
All I'm saying is I prefer to try to. It's literally, and this is just a like you want to bat a baseball bat that's 28 ounces and I want a 32 ounce bat. It's just like it's whatever our preference is at this point. Of like I tend to think, and I would argue, given
it's all vibes. Yeah, he's right. It's all vibes. I tend to agree that narrower definitions of things are more useful. Because when you expand it, it's like there are other terms for all those things that you're roping into this thing here. And it's just not really useful to use like these big blanket terms like woke to mean all these other things too. Yeah, that's okay. We're gonna watch this for a couple more minutes and then we're done with this video because it's forever.
Given how much the fact that we're debating this, given that there's so much opposition to the term woke right, is evidence that the way that it's been used by people like Jim Lindsay and the way that you're using it means it's not a very good term. Whereas,
it's a great term. It's a great term because they
not in how it's being used.
They hate it so
That's not
much.
No, I wouldn't say that's a measure of a good term.
That's not what makes a term great. It makes it fun. It gives us something to do tonight. We could have done other things tonight, but I'm saving them for the weekend. But that is not what makes a term useful. At all. It's not what makes a term useful. It only makes it fun. Like someone getting mad about you saying something doesn't mean that the thing you said was useful or not.
That's a
no, it does, because the only use of the term woke is as a pejorative. That's what it's for. It's to shame people for having idiotic beliefs. Like, what else would it be?
Yeah, it exposes. I want to build off that real quick. It exposes hypocrisy. It like woke, especially on the right, has become a boogeyman for a lot of people. They've opposed it for pretty good reasons, in my opinion.
Okay.
Right.
How about this?
If I may finish.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Right. And by evoking that term, they're holding a mirror to people's behaviors and saying, these things that you decried when the left was doing it, look what you've become. Look what you've become. I think that the danger, the pernicious danger specifically of those I would consider the woke right, the danger of this is that they have, and I think Jim Lindsay's just correct about this, they are doing what the woke left did, which was finding positions of influence and power within the structures that make up the right, MAGA, with a lot of MAGA and stuff, positions of influence and power, and they are using that to basically kick out everyone who's not them and invite their friends in. And they're going to do the same thing that the woke left did, which is create this system where if you do not play ball with them, they will be able to silence you. And it doesn't take a lot to do it. I'm not saying everyone on the right is woke. It's a very small amount. There's not a lot, right? But they're enough, and they're in positions of influence and power, and they're trying to get more, and it's a problem. Go ahead, you can try.
Can I play a 34-second clip and share my screen here?
Yeah, share your screen, and we'll watch it.
I should have shown this clip. This is, I want to share audio. I'm sure you guys have seen this.
You can just share your screen or send it to me because I can't see it.
Also share system audio. Applications. Here we go.
While we're doing that, some other day, Paul, you and I should do political philosophy. It sounds like we actually have some interests in common.
Indeed. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the archetypal woke right, and there's nothing that is more of a mirror than this.
Anti-Semitism is not just an age-old prejudice. It is a contemporary crisis manifesting on campuses across the nation. It is not enough for individuals or institutions to merely claim they are not anti-Semitic. As my father once taught me, it is not enough for people, especially public figures, to be neutral or not be anti-Semitic. One must be anti-anti-Semitic. We must demand the same of our universities.
That's pretty woke. No, that's pretty woke.
That's
I don't
pretty
disagree.
fucking
That's
woke.
the woke right.
All right. I think we're all going to
That was pretty woke. Yeah. That was pretty woke.
agree that's woke as hell.
Yeah, that's woke as hell.
And that is not coming from the left.
Oh, no. I think
No, the left
Where
does
is
it
it
too.
coming
Hold
from?
on, no, that's not true. The left does it too. It's not just enough to be silent when it comes to Israel-Palestine. You have to be anti-genocide. You have to be on the streets. And if
Sure,
you are
but
not
that-
anti-genocide, you are not an ally.
Yeah.
Look, it's
The
not
left-
enough.
Yeah, I don't think PF was saying it doesn't come from the left.
It's not enough.
Of
to
course,
be-
the left is
to be not
also
racist.
there
You
are
have to be
woke
anti-racist.
Yes, there are woke
Yeah.
elements on the left, but I'm saying what we just saw is a rabbi that was invited to an anti-Semitism testimony by a Republican and who was Trump's Jewish prayer guy at the Day of Religious Prayer. That guy.
Oh yeah, they covered that one already. They covered that one already, Bucky. The argument has mostly devolved. We're probably going to call it very, very soon because they're circling the drain now. There is no landing the plane because the disagreement they're having is basically over like exactly where to draw the line, and that's just vibes. And that's we'll do a little summary of what we learned today in our 3 hours of investigating the term woke right.
Is squarely on the right. And that is the most woke thing that any of us have ever seen. And he's on the right. And so
I totally agree.
No,
equals.
We don't disagree. We
all agree on this one. And I think that actually comparing this and the Murray clip is helpful. Because I was saying earlier, I think there needs to be some zone of discretion, some grace.
That's woke right.
You know? But like, obviously between what Murray said and what this guy said is an enormous gulf. So like,
True. Yeah, right.
I'm not sure where I would draw the line in between them. But there certainly is a line to be drawn there in my mind, because that whenever you say,
yeah, but every person's going to just draw an arbitrarily different line. It's just so, so that aspect is just so boring.
Hey, if you're not with me, you're against me. You're starting to lean into woke territory.
Sure. I rest my case that the woke right exists.
I think we all agree the woke right exists.
That wasn't... Everyone agreed on that at the beginning.
Agreed. You've won the battle that no one was fighting, but you know what? That's okay. We're gonna get into the war.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. The woke right exists, and it's the people who use, in particular, the most relevant. Let me ask. Well, how about this? Is a more interesting question. What's the most relevant faction of the woke right? Because we agree that that's woke right. The people who use claims of anti-Semitism to silence people. That's one faction of the woke right. Then there's like you said, the Christian nationalists who think women shouldn't vote or whatever. Which of those two are more pertinent in our political situation?
Of
well,
those
I think
two,
you're also going to see like there's a species of race realist that is popping up.
Sure. Okay, them too. Which of those three?
I hate to throw one under the bus because he's sick, and I love Dilbert, and I'd love to talk to him about one of his books. But when Scott Adams said like white people should get the hell away from black people, for example, like that strikes me as fairly woke.
Yeah, that's that's an example of something that I would call it's a little as racist. Now again, I'm even hesitant to use the word because I feel like I'm now a leftist. Well, that's racist.
Well, I mean, wait, are you saying that you're suspicious of something
hold on.
that Douglas Adams said? That
right, totally.
That sounds awfully woke to me.
Well, but I also okay. Hold on. I asked you a question.
He got him there.
Between all of those
really,
different factions of the woke right, in my mind, it's very clear that the one directly in power, directly in Donald Trump's ear, the one who is deporting students for criticizing Israel, the one who is in the testimony saying exactly verbatim Ibram X talking points, that is the more relevant and more dangerous woke faction that should be focused on. And it's useful to have a term that narrows it down to that, because those other factions, while I agree are dangerous and will only continue to get more dangerous, currently, and I would say those other factions are dangerous, but if our freedom of speech gets taken away, that's the worst. That's not the worst thing that could happen. It's one of the worst things that could happen. Far more than what the idea that women are going to lose the right to vote. Like half this country's women. Do we think it's a real possibility that those Christian nationalists are going to remove the rights of women to vote within the next 100 years?
Within the next
200?
It's hard to prognosticate, but I think it's a real risk. Depending on what happens,
always a real risk.
Within the next, I want to say 10 years.
Which is more likely? That the Trump administration continues to censor people for criticism of Israel under the defense of protecting Jewish students or whatever, or identity, and fighting anti-Semitism, or the Christian nationalists eliminating the right of women to vote. Which of those is more likely?
Again, I'm not gonna argue with you. I think
wisely, because if you answered it honestly, you would lose the debate.
Administration is the greatest free speech threat to free speech we've seen in over a generation. But it's not just on the anti-Semitic front. It's on a whole host of fronts. They're attacking lawyers and law firms that have represented clients that Trump doesn't like. They're revoking their security clearances, banning them from buildings, from federal government buildings, banning them.
Okay. So, what did we learn today? Basically nothing. We watched a bunch of videos where people proselytized for like 15 minutes before giving a extremely uninspiring definition of this fantastical term, the woke right, which probably exists. I don't care. There, like P.F. Young was saying, there's all these other bad aspects of things, and we can categorize them more specifically. And I think that all the things categorized as woke, even the ones that P.F. Young was talking about, would be better characterized more specifically by the actual bad thing that they're doing. So if, for example, if P.F. Young is defining wokeness as using identity politics to silence someone or take away speech, then we should just say that they're silencing people to take away speech using identity politics. If they're using the term, the other two, to mean anything that kind of attacks classical liberalism using identity politics, then that's just too broad. I think that's just too broad. That's just, now it's just like a worthless term. But yeah, this was an interesting stream. I wanted to investigate this weird phenomenon of us arguing about this term all of the sudden recently because this James Lindsay guy wasn't getting enough attention or something. That's really what it seems like. It seems like James wasn't getting enough attention, and here we are. All very interesting. Well, not very, but interesting-ish, I guess. But yeah, that was a whole bunch of stuff. That's for sure. So I'm not going to be on tomorrow night because I have plans, but I have work and plans. But I should be on for a longer stream on Saturday. Possibly a non-stream related prepared content video could be coming soon. Oh, maybe a haircut needs to be coming soon too. Yeah, probably a haircut. On an unrelated note, I need a haircut. And yeah, that's gonna do it for tonight. Tomorrow's Friday. I've had a long week at work. I'm exhausted. And tomorrow is not gonna be any easier than the rest of the week. Gonna be crawling around in an attic as usual. So thank you all for hanging out, and I will see you again on Saturday.